Chapter 884. The highest bidder wins. The story of Seju City was endless. Not to mention the rich and powerful families, even the families of ordinary people had a lot of stories to tell. In Seju City, which was the center of power, every family's Sehyuan was the story of the rise and fall of several generations. Therefore, the Yang family was not the only one, nor would it be the last. The story of the Yang family was too long. For ordinary people, it might be mysterious, but for the big shots in Seju City, they should be more familiar with it than anyone else. Therefore, people often sighed with emotion about the experience of the Yang family. Fortunately, the Yang family had persisted. Yang Yi seemed to be a righteous and forthright person, but his social circle was not big, and he did not seem to be willing to interact with too many playboys, and he was more willing to interact with older friends. Therefore, among the younger generation, Yang Yi did not have much of a story, nor was he willing to have any story. For those playboys with illustrious family backgrounds, a declining Yang family did not seem to be interested. The fact that the Yang family sent Yang Yi to meet Qin Shing today showed that Yang Yi had a high position in the Yang family. As for whether he could make the final decision for the Yang family, no one knew. At least Qin Shing had changed from the initial resistance to the current willingness to communicate. Yang Yi was a good drinker, and he often drank, but only a few friends often drank. Most of the time, he preferred to make some money to relax, and those unnecessary social activities were meaningless to him. After a few glasses of wine, Yang Yi became a little talkative. He smiled and said, "Actually, compared to you, I know your sister better. But don't guess randomly. There is no story between your sister and me. If there was, your sister would have told you already." "Ha!" Qin Shing muttered in his heart, "Maybe you want to win my sister's heart, but my sister doesn't like you." "Tut, tut, tut, there are many people in Seju City who want to be my brother-in-law." Qin Shing asked casually, "Brother Yang, are you married?" "Married? What are you waiting for? People like us don't lack anything. It's good to get married early," Yang Yi said with a smile while eating the cucumber. "I know you're not married. I also know that you have a good relationship with Song Ryu." It was Song Ryu again. Who had spread this rumor? Qin Shing said helplessly, "What are you talking about?" Yang Yi burst into laughter. It was rare for him to see Qin Shing's embarrassment, which meant that it was not a rumor. However, now that the Qin family was in such a big trouble, and the Song family was so prominent, everyone thought that Qin Shing was not worthy of Song Ryu, not to mention that Song Ryu was so outstanding. Yang Yi drank another glass of wine and said with a smile, "How is it? It's been so easy recently, hasn't it? Look at the moonless, windy night, drinking wine, eating appetizers, and chatting about trifles. How comfortable is that? Why put so much pressure on yourself? Brother Yang, are you trying to persuade me?" Qin Shing frowned slightly. He did not want to joke around. He could still guess what Yang Yi meant. Yang Yi shrugged and said, "I'm not trying to persuade you. I'm just talking about my experience. What your family has experienced, our family has also experienced. It's just that our family has chosen a different path. That's why our family can continue to be like this. But if you choose the opposite path, I don't know what the result will be. I'm just a little worried." "Brother Yang, aren't you trying to persuade me?" Qin Shing chuckled. Yang Yi said helplessly, "The difference between our families is that when our family got into trouble back then, our parents' generation was much older. They've experienced a lot in this industry and seen through a lot of things, so they know how to make a decision. But in your family, you are the only true successor. You are young and have less experience, so I can understand why you are doing this." Qin Shing was still unwilling to answer. He just said, "Brother Yang, you know why I came to the Yang family today. If the Yang family chose to let you be the lobbyist in order to avoid me, I don't think we need to continue to talk. I owe you for today's drink. I will pay you back another day." After saying that, Qin Shing was ready to stand up and leave. There was no need for him to waste time here. Yang Yi quickly stood up and stopped Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng, you misunderstood me. I'm not a lobbyist. What I said just now was just what I wanted to say. Qin Sheng stopped and asked, Brother Yang, I want to know what the Yang family means. Did they think that I'm not qualified, so they sent you here as a formality? Yang Yi squinted and asked, Do you mean that my words don't count? Qin Sheng did not deny it. The Yang family is a big family. Besides, it's such a big thing. How can you call the shots, Brother Yang? What if I call the shots? Yang Yi said in a powerful voice. Hearing this, Qin Sheng already knew the answer in his heart. It meant that Yang Yi's words really counted, or the Yang family had already explained it to him. So Qin Sheng sat down again without hesitation. He poured himself a glass of wine and said, Then let's talk again. Seeing Qin Sheng's change of attitude, Yang Yi smiled bitterly and said, Boy, you are a little interesting. Unconsciously, Qin Sheng had already turned from guest to host. This time, Yang Yi really could not sit still. After drinking this glass of wine, Qin Sheng said bluntly, Brother Yang, let's get to the point. You should have guessed why I came to the Yang family. These years, the Yang family has been a shareholder of the Chang'an Group, but has been silent behind the scenes. No matter when or where, they are not willing to intervene in the Chang'an Group's affairs. I think they are a little too low-key. Now that the Chang'an Group is in a crisis, we need the Yang family to come out and turn the tide. I think the Yang family has also received the notice. In a few days, the Chang'an Group will hold a shareholders' meeting to elect new members of the board of directors. The Yang family has never nominated anyone. This time, I hope the Yang family can stand on the side of the Qin family, so that the Chang'an Group will not collapse. Yang Yi did not say too much nonsense. He said directly, Qin Sheng, tell me, why should the Yang family support you instead of Lord Lu? Compared to offending the Qin family, we are more unwilling to offend Lord Lu. However, the Yang family is not willing to offend anyone, so you should understand what I want to say. Qin Sheng frowned and said, Brother Yang, do you mean that the Yang family will still choose to stand by and do nothing this time? Yang Yi shook his head and said, We have no choice. The reason why the Yang family can still be like this all these years is that we know how to conduct ourselves. We will not offend anyone, so we have a good relationship with those tycoons. It is not necessary to offend Lord Lu for the Qin family, and we do not want to offend the Qin family for Lord Lu. Even if the Chang'an Group really collapses, the Yang family will not care. Therefore, we should not help anyone and keep silent. Hearing Yang Yi's words, Qin Sheng was disappointed. He let out a long sigh and said, I knew it might be like this, but I still want to try. Yang Yi stood up and patted Qin Sheng's shoulder with a bitter smile as he said, Some results are destined, so there is no need to make trouble. Qin Sheng said casually, Will the Yang family really not help anyone? Yang Yi said disapprovingly, Not necessarily. Qin Sheng was surprised and said, Brother Yang, what do you mean? Yang Yi hesitated for a while and said in the end, Qin Sheng, I shouldn't have told you about this. But since we are talking about this, I might as well mention it. Before I met you, Master Lu had already looked for my eldest uncle. Qin Sheng was shocked after hearing this. Lord Lu has already looked for me? Qin Sheng did not expect that Lord Lu would act so fast, which was far faster than they had imagined. This was definitely not good news for the Qin family. However, Qin Sheng was more worried about another thing. He could not wait and said, Brother Yang, what you said just now was actually a lie. Has the Yang family chosen to help Lord Lu? If the Yang family has chosen to help Lord Lu, then there is no need to see you again, Yang Yi said with a smile. It seemed that Qin Sheng was a little confused. It was already 12 o'clock in the morning. Beijing at night was much cooler than during the day. It was very comfortable to sit in the yard and drink at this time. But the premise was that there were no troubles in life. Unfortunately, Qin Sheng had too many troubles. Qin Shing raised his glass and said hesitantly, "Brother Yang, what do you mean?" "What I want to tell you is that my uncle told Lord Lu that the Yang family will not help anyone this time. We don't want to offend anyone. If you really want the Yang family to help, then show us something practical. As long as you give us enough benefits, we can sell all the Yang family's shares in Chang'an," Yang Yi said slowly. Hearing this, Qin Shing was shocked. He did not expect that the Yang family would have such an idea. They wanted to sell the shares in Chang'an. What did they mean? Qin Shing did not have time to think about the Yang family's motive. He asked, "Brother Yang, if the Qin family wants to buy it, how much do you want?" "The highest bidder wins." Yang Yi only said a few words. Qin Shing said quietly, "I see." After saying that, Qin Shing couldn't wait to go back. He definitely couldn't name a price, because he had no idea how much these shares were worth. However, Chang Sini and Hao Mingyi were more clear about it. Only Uncle Gongsun knew how much the Qin family could offer when the time came. "Brother Yang, I don't want to be so polite. Sorry for bothering you today. I will buy you a drink next time." Qin Shing stood up and said goodbye to Yang Yi. Yang Yi did not stop Qin Shing. He waved his hand and said, "See you another day." After saying this, Yang Yi watched Qin Shing leave. Seeing Qin Shing's hurried look, Yang Yi knew that the Yang family had achieved their goal. What was the Yang family's purpose? In fact, it was very simple. Since the incident in Chang'an broke out, the Yang family had wanted to withdraw from Chang'an. Because the Yang family always liked to keep a low profile, now Chang'an had become the focus of everyone's attention. Sooner or later, the Yang family would dig out the Yang family's background, which was not what the Yang family wanted to see. However, the Yang family did not take the initiative to withdraw. First, no one would interfere with Chang'an at this time. Some people thought it was a hot potato, while others thought it was not the time for Chang'an to take action. Of course, the Yang family did not want to wait until then. Second, the Yang family did not withdraw easily, because they did not want to offend the major shareholders of Chang'an. None of them were easy to mess with. If they really offended them, they would not feel good later. Now the opportunity finally came. When Godfather Lu met with the elders of the Yang family, the elders of the Yang family told him about this. However, Godfather Lu wasn't interested. He didn't need to spend so much money to buy the results he had already obtained. Moreover, this was a lot of money. If Godfather Lu wasn't willing to pay, the people behind him wouldn't be willing to pay either. Most importantly, no one knew the future of Chang'an. Therefore, at that time, the Yang family could only promise Lord Lu that as long as the shares were in the Yang family's hands, the Yang family would not help anyone. But besides Lord Lu, there was still the Qin family. If the Yang family really wanted to withdraw, the Qin family would be the only one to take over. That was why everything happened today. Everything was planned by the Yang family. Yang Yi was not simple, so was the Yang family. Chapter 885. This was a trap set up by the Yang family for the Qin family. Yang Yi's acting skills were so good that he could win an Oscar. It would be a waste if he didn't act in a movie. But Yang Yi had to admit that he appreciated Qin Shing. But for the family's benefit, he had no choice. The Yang family had to get out of this mess, because they realized that something more dangerous might happen. They didn't want to get involved, but they had to find a suitable opportunity. Now the opportunity finally came. If Mr. Lu didn't want it, the Qin family would, of course. Because the Qin family was at a disadvantage now, as long as they wanted to keep the Chang'an system, the Qin family would definitely make up their mind. Once the Qin clan made a move, Sixth Master's side would have no choice but to make a move. This was because after the Qin clan obtained the support of the Yang clan, they would have an absolute advantage. At that time, Sixth Master's side would have no choice but to leave in defeat. No matter who it was, they would think that Sixth Master would definitely not do that. So, the Yang family's wishful thinking was very good. This was an overt plot. As for the Qin family, they didn't fall into the Yang family's trap. They had been prepared. As long as the Yang family was willing to support the Qin family was willing to pay a certain price. Because the Qin family's goal was to defeat Mr. Liu and continue to control the Chang'an system. Now, the Yang family gave them a better choice. Why wouldn't the Qin family consider it? They just took what they needed. When Qin Sheng walked out of the Yang family's Sihiyuan, he had a premonition that the Yang family's decision might make the situation in the Chang'an system turbulent again. This was good for the Qin family, but not good for Mr. Liu's side. However, the Qin family's top priority now was to figure out how much the Yang family's shares were worth, and what benefits the Qin family would use to exchange for them. At the same time, they had to predict Mr. Liu's price and figure out what their bottom line would be. This was not something that Qin Sheng could do alone, so he wanted to rush back in a hurry. However, if things went too smoothly, it was easy for accidents to happen. At this moment, Qin Sheng, who had just left the Sihiyuan of the Yang family, was in such a situation because someone blocked their way. A middle-aged man with gray hair, who was not very old, stood in the middle of the road. In this dim alley with street lamps, anyone could feel that the person dressed like this was not good. Chang Baji stood in front of Qin Sheng without hesitation. At the same time, he sized up this uninvited guest. Chang Baji did not know why he had not felt such a dangerous person for a long time. This man was full of killing intent, which made Chang Baji nervous. At the same time, Chang Baji was also observing the surrounding environment to ensure that no other dangerous people appeared. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to protect himself. Qin Sheng frowned and stared at the middle-aged man in front of him, who wanted to touch him this time. He had appeared at the entrance of the Yang family's Sihiyuan in such a strange manner. At the same time, only Chang Baji was by his side. Could it be that the Yang family had betrayed him? After all, the meeting place today was set by the Yang family. It was also set by the Yang family to let him bring only one person. The other party's timing was so coincidental, Qin Sheng could not help but think. In addition, Qin Sheng thought that Master Liu had met the elders of the Yang family before him, and then the Yang family chose to meet him. He could not help but wonder if it was a trap set up by the Yang family and Master Liu. In the middle of the night, in an empty alley, they met on a narrow road. It seemed that a fierce battle was inevitable. This was Beijing. Were they really so unscrupulous? It was so strange every time. This made Qin Sheng could not help but feel that there seemed to be a pair of invisible eyes staring at him in the dark. The middle-aged man walked forward slowly. His gray hair covered half of his face, and it was not clear what he looked like. As he walked, he said, "Young Master Qin, I advise you to stop before you go too far. Don't regret it in the end." "Who sent you here? Or Master Liu?" Qin Sheng asked sternly. The middle-aged man said disapprovingly, "You don't have to worry about this. I'm just bringing a message for someone. Don't tell me you want to see your family leave you first. I think you're not willing, right? Are you threatening me?" Qin Sheng snorted. The middle-aged man continued to walk forward and said, "This is not a threat, this is the truth." It was unknown if the middle-aged man knew about Chang Baji's strength, but he seemed to ignore Chang Baji's existence. This made Chang Baji very unhappy. Chang Baji turned to Qin Sheng and said, "Young master, step back. Let me fight him." As long as there was danger, Chang Baji would definitely rush to the front. It was the same this time. Qin Sheng did not want to continue fighting here. He took out his phone and contacted Yujbak and the others who were outside. He had no time to care about these small fries. The important things were the most important. The middle-aged man still did not stop. He faced Chang Baji and said, "Are you Chang Baji?" "I'm Chang Baji," Chang Baji answered directly. The middle-aged man saw that Qin Sheng was already calling for help, so he did not want to waste any more time. he suddenly sped up and rushed to Changbaji. At the same time, he shouted, "Then let me fight you." Changbaji did not retreat at all. Instead, he advanced. He did not hesitate at all. At the same time, he also rushed to the middle-aged man. A big battle started in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the two sides were in front of each other. There was no more communication. They directly used their strength to fight. The middle-aged man's aura was like a rainbow. He took the initiative to attack first. When he was only half a meter away from Changbaji, he lightly stepped on the tip of his foot and then jumped to hit Changbaji. Changbaji did not dodge. He directly used his arms to block the man's attack. At the same time, he suddenly pushed the man back. Before the man landed on the ground, Changbaji had already closed in and launched a tricky side kick at the man. The middle-aged man sneered and easily dodged the kick by tilting his body to the side. In return, he gave Changbaji a series of powerful punches in a row. The middle-aged man's punches were very fast and powerful, but Changbaji was not an ordinary character. The two of them punched back and forth. Both of them wanted to break through the other's defense first. Neither of them wanted to be the first to be defeated. Changbaji quietly found a flaw in the man's defense. He suddenly grabbed the man's arms and directly bent his knees to throw the man to the side. The middle-aged man took the opportunity to get up and gave Changbaji a chance. However, he only moved from the left to the right. The moment he landed, the man suddenly launched a sneak attack. He directly lifted his knee and hit Changbaji's waist. How could Changbaji lose like this? However, this move was not easy to dodge. Changbaji could only punch the man's chest with both fists. At the same time, he used the reverse force to back his leg to avoid the man's attack. The man did not think that he would be at a disadvantage, because when they separated, the man's knee directly turned into a whip kick. At the same time, he pulled the distance and kicked Changbaji's shoulder. Both of them hit each other at the same time and took a few steps back at the same time. Changbaji could not help but think that the flaw just now might be the middle-aged man's calculation. Even the knee attack was just a feint. The real follow-up was this side kick. Fortunately, he reacted in time and did not let the middle-aged man's calculation succeed. This middle-aged man was not simple. The middle-aged man looked at Changbaji and sneered. Changbaji is just so. Changbaji did not talk nonsense. He just said, "Then let's fight again." The middle-aged man directly took a few steps back and said, "Don't worry, we will have the opportunity to fight again. But today, I don't have time to play with you. Today, I just came to bring a message. We will meet again someday." After saying this, the middle-aged man turned around and sped up to escape into the depths of the alley. In an instant, he disappeared into the night. Changbaji did not want to chase after him at all. He was afraid that this was a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. He would not be relieved until Yujbak and the others arrived. Not an ordinary person? Qin Shing had seen the scene of the fight just now. He was not a layman. Naturally, he could see some clues. Changbaji said truthfully, "His strength is definitely not lower than mine. I don't know where he hired him from. Maybe he specially came to deal with me." Qin Shing frowned and said, "It seems that he came prepared. We really have to be careful in the future." At this moment, the gate of the Yang family's Sihiyuan behind suddenly opened. Yang Yi hurried over with his confidant. Before he entered, he directly shouted, "Qin Shing, what happened just now? I heard from my subordinates that there was a situation outside, so I hurried out. Are you all right?" Qin Shing looked at Yang Yi and said, "Brother Yang, you really came at the right time." Yang Yi instantly understood what Qin Shing wanted to say. He squinted and said, "Qin Shing, what do you mean? You suspect that this is a trap set by our Yang family. We are not so shameless." How could Qin Shing not be angry when he encountered such a situation? He said unhappily, "Brother Yang, the meeting place was chosen by your Yang family. It was also your Yang family that asked me to bring only one person. How can I not think about it when I am in danger outside of your Yang family's house? You don't believe me, Yang Yi, or you don't believe in my Yang family. What benefits does our Yang family have if something happens to you? Besides, our Yang family is not so stupid to make a move in our own home, Yang Yi directly retorted. Qin Shing thought about it and agreed. The probability of the Yang family being involved was not high. Moreover, he still needed help from the Yang family now. This relationship should not be too stiff. So he said, Brother Yang, I was just saying. I think it won't be like this. Since you don't believe me, I will find someone to investigate and then tell you the truth, Yang Yi said directly without any nonsense. Qin Shing said quietly, I hope so. At this time, Yujbak and the others, who had received Qin Shing's call, had already driven in. They had been waiting outside, thinking that there would be no accidents tonight. However, they did not expect to suddenly receive a call from Qin Shing. They were all shocked and hurried over. However, when they arrived, they found that there seemed to be nothing wrong, which was somewhat unexpected. Since Yujbak and the others had come, there was no need for Qin Shing to stay. So he said a few words to Yang Yi, then got in the car and left the alley where the Yang family was located. Chapter 886. If Zhao Anji had been attacked in Changbai Mountain and Qin Shing had been attacked in Shitong Ancient Town 2 days ago, it was just a warning to the Qin family in secret. However, tonight's encounter in this alley was a naked threat to the Qin family. This was not the first or second time this had happened. Since the time when Qin Chang'an was in the suburbs of Beijing, there had been a powerful force secretly targeting the Qin family. The members of the Qin family had been in deep danger several times. Being able to have such power and be so unscrupulous, the force behind it was definitely not simple. When Qin Shing returned to the West Mountain Villa, the others had not gone to bed yet. It seemed that they were waiting for the result of Qin Shing's meeting with the Yang family tonight. This was related to the Qin family's next action. Zhao Anji and Qin Ran were somewhat restless. If they could not win over the Yang family, they had to go all out to win over the other families. Auntie, will the Yang family refuse? Qin Ran asked with uncertainty. Zhao Anji shook her head and replied, Let's leave it to fate. I hope it won't happen. Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini were also here tonight. Recently, they were exhausted by the Chang and group's affairs. Internally, some senior executives were against them. Many things couldn't be carried out at all. They were told that they would resign soon. Externally, Sixth Uncle and other shareholders continued to put pressure on them, which made it more difficult for them to do anything. They couldn't do anything outside the company. If the Qin family won, they would continue to be in charge of the Chang'an system. If the Qin family lost, they would be eliminated along with the Qin family. Half an hour later, Qin Shing returned to Shishan Villa. It was already 2 o'clock in the morning. Everyone was waiting for Qin Shing to come back. The kitchen was even more afraid that they would be hungry, so they prepared a lot of rich midnight snacks. Qin Shing had already told the others not to tell anyone about what had happened tonight. If they told everyone about it at this time, it would only make everyone feel more stressed and panicked. Qin Shing did not want that to happen. He could only ask Chang Baji to strengthen the security in secret. After Qin Shing came in, Zhao Anji could not wait to ask, Xing how is it? I didn't see the elders of the Yang family, only Yang Yi, Qin Shing said honestly. Qin Ran knew Yang Yi, but she had never had any contact with him. She said in surprise, How could it be Yang Yi? What did the Yang family mean by this? Could Yang Yi represent the Yang family? Are they avoiding our Qin family and only sent Yang Yi to brush us off? Zhao Anji was very disappointed when she heard this. She was also angry at the Yang family. If they didn't want to help, they could have just said so. There was no need to humiliate the Qin family like this. Chang Sini and Hao Mingyi were also disappointed. It seemed that there was no hope for the Qin family. The Chang'an school was about to be handed over to someone else. At this time, Qin Xing suddenly said, Yang Yi said that he can represent the Yang family. Upon hearing this, Qin Ran smiled bitterly and said, Qin Xing, can you finish your words? Are you trying to scare us to death? Xing don't keep us guessing. Just tell us directly. What's the result? No matter what the result is, we can accept it. Zhao Anji couldn't stand the emotional ups and downs, so she asked directly. After Qin Xing sat down, he took a banana casually and said, Yang Yi told us that sixth uncle had already met with the seniors of the Yang family before we went to them. So you know the result. The Yang family won't help us. But don't worry, they won't help sixth uncle either. They will still choose to be neutral and stand by. Qin Xing's words were full of ups and downs again. When they heard that sixth uncle had already met with the Yang family, and the Yang family refused to help the Qin family, they were instantly disheartened. But when they heard that the Yang family wouldn't help sixth uncle, they felt lucky and hopeful. However, the next second, they realized that it didn't matter to sixth uncle. However, it didn't matter if the Yang family helped them or not, because they only had one request, and that was that the Yang family couldn't help the Qin family. But for them, whether the Yang family would help them or not was a world of difference. If the Yang family chose to help them, then they would have an absolute advantage over sixth uncle. If the Yang family didn't help them, then they would have to go all out to win over the other families. And for them, it was a must to win over the other families. However, everyone knew that the chances were slim. It should be said that there was almost no hope. Therefore, at this moment, everyone was in a heavy mood. This was definitely a huge blow to the Qin family. It was only a matter of time before the Qin family left the Chang'an system. It seems that we have no hope. Zhao Anji sighed and said. Chang Sini didn't want to give up so easily. She cheered them up and said, We can't give up easily until the last moment. There are still other families, right? Next we have to do our best. Qin Xing didn't hurry to tell them the other method of the Yang family. Instead, he asked, How are the other families doing now? Have they replied to us? Qin Ran took the lead and said, The Shen family is ambiguous. They haven't given a definite answer yet. But my friend said that she would try to let me meet her father. Now her father is still abroad on a business trip and will come back the day after tomorrow. The Dong family said that they can meet him. They don't have many shares in the Chang'an system, so they don't have much say. They don't have much contact with sixth uncle. Maybe we can persuade them. After all, they have more cooperation with the Chang'an system. After sixth uncle takes power, the Dong family will be more influential, Chang Sini said honestly. Next, Qin Xing looked at Zhao Anji. Zhao Anji looked pale. She said helplessly, The Zhang family gave me a clear answer tonight. They said that they won't help us, because they can't afford to offend sixth uncle, the Su family, the Li family, and so on. This is not a good deal. Hearing Zhao Anji's words, Chang Sini, Hao Mingyi, and Qin Ran were completely disheartened. Hao Mingyi sighed and said, Is there really no hope? That's it? Qin Ran said blankly. She couldn't accept the result after working so hard for so long. She didn't want to see the Chang'an system built by her father collapse. The Yang family chose to stay neutral and didn't help anyone. The Zhang family directly refused, which meant that the Qin family had no other way. The Qin family was defeated? Qin Xing waited until everyone had given their answer. At this time, he stood up again and said, Then, there is only one way left. There is another way? Hao Mingyi was shocked. Zhao Anji hurriedly asked, What is it? Qin Xing didn't keep them guessing anymore. He said slowly, The Yang family said that although they won't help anyone, if anyone is interested, the Yang family can sell all their shares in the Chang'an system. The highest bidder will get it. What? When Qin Xing said this news, everyone was extremely shocked. They did not expect that the Yang family would actually want to sell all of their shares. For the Qin family, this was absolutely a hopeless situation, where there was a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour of the year. Qin Sheng was shocked. At this time, almost no one was thinking about how much the shares held by the Yang family were worth. Even if it was an astronomical figure, the Qin family would still fight with their lives, because this was the only life-saving straw for the Qin family. They had to hold on to it tightly. Only in this way could the Qin family win against the sixth uncle and continue to control the Chang'an system. Xing'er, are you sure? Zhao Anji asked eagerly. Qin Xing nodded silently and said, I'm sure. This is what Yang Yi said. I think the Yang family doesn't need to play tricks on us. If you believe it, you can ask the elders of the Yang family in person. In this way we will be more confident. Since they want to sell it, we will buy it, Qin Ran said without hesitation. She didn't want to miss such an opportunity at all, for fear that the last chance would slip away. Hao Mingyi also echoed, it seems that this is the only way. Everyone saw hope, so they didn't hesitate anymore. No matter how much it cost, they would buy it. However, as the president of the Chang'an system, Chang Sini said calmly, buy it? According to the current value of the Chang'an system, the Yang family's shares are worth hundreds of millions or even billions. If we really want to buy it, where can we find such a big funding gap? Hearing Chang Sini's words, everyone felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on them. In the past, when Qin Chang'an was still in power, no matter what they bought, they never cared about the price, as long as it was worth the price. Therefore, the Chang'an system could easily buy shares of listed companies, including banks, real estate, and other blue chip. However, in the past, Qin Chang'an had the Chang'an Group. Every time, it was the Chang'an Group that did the bidding. The Chang'an Group did not lack money at all. This time, it was not the Chang'an Group that wanted to buy the shares, but the Qin family. Moreover, it was the Chang'an Group's shares. Because the Qin family couldn't use the resources of the Chang'an system at all. Sixth uncle and the others were staring at them, and the board of directors would never agree. Even if they wanted to borrow money from the Chang'an system, it was impossible. It was a dead end. Besides, in the current economic environment and the Qin family's current situation, even if the Qin family wanted to borrow money or raise funds, no one would be willing to lend them money, even if they didn't consider the cost or interest. Just when there was hope, it was gone again. The Qin family was not what it used to be. There was a huge difference between the Qin family with the Chang'an system and the Qin family without the Chang'an system. At this time, everyone seemed to come to their senses. The Qin family was not the Qin family in the past anymore. Hao Mingyi also came to his senses and said, Sini is right. The shares held by the Yang family are not small. Even if they want to sell them, we may not be able to buy them. Even if we mortgage our shares to raise funds, based on the current situation of the Chang'an system and the Qin family, no one will be willing to lend us money. Moreover, sixth uncle will stop us. Who dares to offend them? Zhao Anji also came to her senses and said, there is another situation. The Yang family said that the highest bidder will get the shares. Once sixth uncle knows that we want to buy the shares of the Yang family, he will definitely interfere. At that time, even if he doesn't buy it, he will raise the price to a level that we can't accept. This is the most terrible thing. Qin Ran looked depressed and said, then what should we do? After everyone told him all the factors, Qin Sheng was no longer blindly optimistic. He didn't think about these problems in the beginning. He just thought that this was the only way for the Qin family, so he came back to discuss with everyone. However, after the discussion, Qin Sheng's heart became heavy again. The living room fell into silence again. Everyone stopped talking and began to think about all kinds of possibilities. At this time, Gongsun, who had not said anything and seemed not to care about anything, suddenly stood up and said, who said that the Qin family can't afford it? Everyone looked at Gongsun subconsciously and stared at him with puzzlement. They didn't know what Gongsun meant. After looking at everyone, Gongsun said confidently, "You seem to have forgotten that the Qin family is not only the Chang'an system, but also the Qin family. The Qin family and the Qin family." This was what Gongsun wanted to say. Gongsun's words ignited hope again. Chapter 887. The Chang'an family was too famous and powerful, so everyone only paid attention to the Chang'an family. In recent years, everyone had associated the Chang'an family with Qin Chang'an. They all thought that the Chang'an family belonged to the Qin family, so they thought that the Qin family only had the Chang'an family. Chang Xini, Hao Mingyi, and Qin Ran didn't know how powerful the Qin family was. Chang Xini and Hao Mingyi focused all their energy on the Chang'an system. After all, the Chang'an system was so big that they had too much work to do every day. They had never contacted the Qin family outside of the Chang'an system. At most, they had cooperated with the companies related to the Qin family. After all, the Chang'an system was so big, how could the Qin family not rely on it? As for Qin Ran, he didn't know much about her. He only knew that the Qin family had other properties outside of the Chang'an system. She only knew a little about the internal affairs of the Chang'an system. Qin Chang'an didn't want her to contact too many things. Girls only needed to enjoy life. Therefore, the only one who really got rid of the Qin family from the Chang'an system was Gongsun, the steward of the Qin family. Because Gongsun was in charge of all the affairs of the Qin family, those trusted subordinates of the Qin family only recognized Gongsun. That was why after Qin Chang'an's accident, the feudal officials of the Qin family still didn't dare to do anything. The system of the Qin family was established by Gongsun, and Gongsun was the real ruler. Because of this, Gongsun dared to say such a thing at this time. The Qin family has other Qin families? Zhao Anji squinted and asked. Gongsun's words really confused her. After all, she had been abroad for these years and didn't know much about the other properties of the Qin family. Among them, only Qin Xing knew a little. The wealth controlled by the 3 core members of the Qin family was not a small amount. But others didn't know. Qin Xing was waiting for Gongsun to explain it to them. Chang Xini and Hao Mingyi looked at each other. Gongsun said slowly, "In addition to the Chang'an branch, the Qin family also has other family properties, which only belong to the Qin family and have nothing to do with the Chang'an branch. What I want to say is that these family properties are not small. If you really want to buy the shares of the Yang family, you can discuss with the Yang family. As for the money, leave it to me." Though Qin Xing knew something about the Qin family, he was still somewhat worried. "Uncle Gongsun, are you sure that the other properties of the Qin family can afford these shares?" "Don't worry. But you should save as much as you can. This time, we've really gone bankrupt," Gongsun said earnestly. He would not say these things unless it was necessary. This was the Qin family's last retreat. Once these things were gone, the Qin family would really have nothing left. Although Gongsun said it lightly, everyone could hear the weight of his words. The Qin clan was really going all out. Once they lost, they really lost. Qin Ran looked at Gongsun and suddenly said, "Uncle Gongsun, you've been with my father for many years. If my father was here, what do you think he would do?" "I don't know either. Right now, you're the ones in charge. You can do whatever you want. But you have to know that every time you make a choice, there will be a price to pay. This is the Qin family's last option. Think carefully before you act," said Gongsun solemnly. Zhao Anji thought more. She frowned and said, "How about we think about it again?" In fact, what Gongsun wanted to say was already very obvious. The Qin family properties might be left by Qin Chang'an for the future of his children. Even if the Chang'an branch collapsed, as long as the Qin family still had these properties, it would be enough for them to make a comeback or live an ordinary life for the rest of their lives. But now, if they bet all of these, it would be really a big gamble. If they lost, all these properties would be gone. At that time, one could imagine the situation of the Qin family. At this time, Qin Shing said firmly, "Auntie, don't think about it anymore. This is the only way now. We're determined to get the shares of the Yang family. We'll do our best in the next few days. Aunt Chong and Uncle Hao, you're in charge of negotiating the price. After all, you know the Chong and branch better. Determine the value of the Yang family's shares. Auntie, I'll leave the Yang family to you. Only the elders can communicate with each other directly. I'll cooperate with you." Chong Sini and Hao Mingi replied, "Okay. Leave the negotiation to us. We'll send out a team immediately and determine the price as soon as possible." "Okay. I'll be in charge of the Yang family. We used to have some connections, but I'm more worried that if sixth uncle knows about it, he will definitely stop us," Zhao Anji said worriedly. Qin Shing said disapprovingly, "Auntie, how can sixth uncle not know? Even if he doesn't know, the Yang family will take the initiative to tell everyone. They said that the highest bidder will get the shares. If no one raises the price, what's the point? Then what should we do?" Qin Ran was worried. Qin Shing had already thought of a solution. "We don't need the Yang family to tell others. Tomorrow, we will take the initiative to tell everyone that the Qin family wants to buy the shares of the Chong, a system held by the Yang family. I think this will definitely disrupt sixth uncle's plan." Hao Mingi frowned and said, "Isn't it the same as asking others to raise the price? Can we bear the price at that time?" Qin Shing explained with a smile, "Sixth uncle will know sooner or later. There's no doubt about this. So it's certain that he will raise the price. It's better for us to take the initiative to tell them and let them bid. In this way we can also know their bottom line." Qin Shing explained with a smile, "However, I don't think sixth uncle can offer any price, because our Qin family will go all out. But sixth uncle has other allies. Even if he wants to buy it, will others be willing to buy it? Each family's situation is different. Each family has to consider their practical significance and make a choice after weighing the benefit. Moreover, each family has a different route. They have to consider more, especially in the aspect of influence. Who dares to take out so much money in public, let alone sixth uncle, who has so much money? Therefore, sixth uncle and his allies are destined to be involved, and they will not really buy the shares of the Yang family." Qin Shing thought of all the possibilities in a short time and said bluntly. After hearing this, everyone felt that Qin Shing's words were very reasonable. They could not help but praise Qin Shing's clear logical thinking ability. He deserved to be the future successor of the Qin family. In this way, even if the Qin family fell today, they would definitely climb up in the future. Qin Shing did not stop there. Instead, he continued to say, "I think the Yang family is also very clear about this, but they are not sure at present, so they will definitely sound out the movements of all parties. If they find that sixth uncle is only raising the price at that time, I think the Yang family will be willing to offer a price that our Qin family can afford." After hearing this, Zhao Anji said with certainty, "Xing you are right. Then let's act separately." After hearing this, Zhao Anji said with certainty, "Xing is right. Then let's act separately." It was getting late. It was already past 3 o'clock in the morning. If they continued to stay up all night, nobody could bear such a heavy load. At that time, before the Qin family's affairs were solved, everyone would probably be exhausted. After everyone went to bed, Qin Shing did not intend to rest. He was not sleepy at this time. He followed Gongsun to the outside garden. At the foot of the West Mountain, there were still stars at night. At this time, it was even quieter. It was rare for it to be so quiet. "Uncle Gongsun, you have worked hard during this period," Qin Shing said very sincerely. When Qin Chang'an was still alive, no one dared to disrespect Gongsun, let alone Qin Shing. Gongsun had done his best for the Qin family. Qin Shing had long regarded Uncle Gongsun as an elder. Gongsun smiled and said, Not at all, not at all. This is what I should do. Uncle Gongsun, what I am worried about is that, if the Qin family chooses this step, will there be a fire in their backyard? At that time, won't those feudal officials rebel? There were some words that Qin Sheng did not say just now, because he did not want to put more pressure on them. Moreover, these things could not be solved by them. At this time, he could finally talk to Gongsun directly. Gongsun snorted and said, "What they have today is given by the Qin family. After so many years, they should know how to be grateful. Moreover, these family properties belong to the Qin family. The Qin family can do whatever they want. What qualifications do they have to criticize? Is it because something happened to Master Qin? If they really want to do this, they should weigh their own ability. Even if the Qin family loses Master Qin, they still have you, young master. Not everyone can bully the Qin family." What Uncle Gongsun said was right, but Qin Sheng was still a little worried. He said in a low voice, "Uncle Gongsun, I know what you mean. But we still need to prepare for a rainy day. I am more at ease in Shanghai. Uncle Bao is loyal to the Qin family. Those in other small places are not so bold. But the two in the northeast and Guangdong are more dangerous. I am afraid of them." Gongsun said faintly, "Young master, don't worry. The Qin family still has me." "Well, if Uncle Gongsun is prepared, then I won't say anything more. I am just afraid that when the time comes, there will be trouble in our backyard. We have finally come to an agreement with the Yang family, but in the end we can't take out so much money. Then we will be in a dilemma," Qin Sheng said. Gongsun said thoughtfully, "Actually, I also know some things. This time, we can use this matter to test who has a more complicated mind. As long as they dare to drag the Qin family down, when the Qin family comes to their senses, they will definitely be the first to deal with them." Qin Sheng was afraid that Gongsun's method would be too tough. He said in a hurry, "Uncle, now the overall situation is more important. We can talk about it later. Even if they don't want to help with all their strength, as long as they take out the money, it will be fine. As for the rest, I will think about it." "Young master, I understand," Gongsun said in a low voice. Indeed, Qin Sheng still had a lot of channels to borrow money. Based on his experience of traveling all over the years, if he was not bragging, he had solid connections. Borrowing tens of billions of yuan might be an exaggeration, but if he wanted to borrow 1 or 2 billion yuan, there was still hope. Qin Sheng's eyes lit up. The Lin family in Ningbo, Jiang Xianbang and Xue Qingyan in Shanghai, and the absolute rich Hanbing, plus a few families in Hangzhou, and so on. Chapter 888. Happy 70th Birthday to the Motherland. Salute to the martyrs who sacrificed for the country and the nation over the past 100 years. Salute to the ancestors who made selfless contributions to the prosperity of the country and the nation. After talking with Gongsun Che, Qin Sheng had a clearer understanding of the current situation of the Qin family. This time, in order to continue to control the Chang'an system, the Qin family had gone all out. This was the last way for the Qin family. Once they failed, the Qin family would definitely not be able to afford the price. But even so, the Qin family had to give it a try. As for the Qin family, Qin Sheng believed in the ability and prestige of Uncle Gongsun. Although the old man was the backbone of the Qin family, Gongsun had been in charge of almost all the affairs of the Qin family these years. Even if the old man was in trouble now, those people still dared not to take Gongsun lightly. Qin Sheng believed that Bao Fan in Shanghai would definitely do his best. But whether the two in the northeast and Guangdong would do their best, he did not know. It all depended on what Uncle Gongsun would do next. It was very late now. Qin Sheng and Gongsun went to bed after they finished talking about these things. Lying on the bed, Qin Sheng was not sleepy at all. The invisible pressure made him a little tired, but he was not defeated by this pressure, because only pressure could make a man grow up quickly. In the next 3 days, no one in the Qin family was idle. Chang Sini and Hao Mingyi not only had to take care of the daily work of the Chang'an system, but also had to deal with the pressure from Uncle Gongsun. At the same time, they had to find out the value of the shares held by the Yang family, so that they could know the bottom line of the Yang family and make the Qin family pay as little as possible. Zhao Anji had contacted the elders of the Yang family through her relationship with the Zhao family. She went to the Yang family 7 or 8 times in 3 days, chatting for an hour or 2 each time. Zhao Anji hoped to win over the Yang family as soon as possible. Even if they were not ready yet, as long as she knew the price of the Yang family, she could bargain at that time. In this regard, Zhao Anji's elder brother, Zhao Zhenjuan, did not understand. Zhao Anji could have just stayed in Canada with her daughter. Why did she have to come back and get involved in this mess? Now that the Qin family was really in trouble, she had to be busy as a woman. The water in Siju City was so deep that it was not something a woman could handle alone. In the end, it was all in vain. After Zhao Anji left the Yang family, she came to see her brother. Zhao Zhenjuan and Yang Yi's father used to be colleagues. Now they had retired to live a good life. It was because of this relationship that Zhao Anji came to her brother for help. For the sake of the Qin family, she had no choice. Otherwise, how could she bow her head to her brother? At dusk, the small courtyard was very quiet. The courtyard was full of flowers and plants. There were also a few cats and dogs. It seemed that when people were old, they always liked these small animals. Perhaps they were afraid of loneliness. After all, their children were all busy and could not accompany them most of the time. Keeping these small animals could relieve their loneliness. Zhao Zhenjuan sat on the rattan chair and held a cattail leaf fan in his hand. On the tea table in front of him were a teapot, teacups, and a few plates of fruit. Zhao Zhenjuan, who had long stopped asking about trifles, was in a good mood. He was not like some retired old leaders who joined various social groups and showed their faces in public. After all, in the past, there was an endless stream of cars and guests in front of the door. Now, people had left and the tea had cooled down. Zhao Zhenjuan hoped that no one would look for him. As long as they looked for him, they must be asking for help. Except for those old fellows, he did not want to see anyone. Of course, this younger sister was an exception. In these years, they had been separated more than together. Now that she was back, Zhao Zhenjuan would be quite happy if there were no trifles in the Qin family. How's the talk? Zhao Zhenjuan knew what this younger sister wanted to do. He could not persuade her no matter how hard he tried, so he did not care. Zhao Anji sighed and said, "What a lion's mouth! Is the Yang family taking advantage of the situation?" Zhao Zhenjuan said helplessly. It was impossible for him to look for his old friend for this matter. This was beyond his ability. Zhao Anji said quietly, "As long as they are willing to speak, then there is a need to talk. Now they are probably waiting for Brother Six to make an offer. So I guess there will not be any progress in a short time." Zhao Zhenjuan analyzed and said, "Brother Six is an old fox. I guess you have to make an offer. In this way they can raise the price. But now there is no movement. This old fox is also calm. He had been in Siju City for so many years. If he did not even have this ability, it would not be justifiable. After all, the power of the Zhao family was not inferior to that of the Zhu family. However, it was a pity that the elders of the Zhao family had all passed away early. Zhao Zhenjuan had no help in the later stage of his career. In addition, he had offended a big shot, so he was blocked at the key position. If he missed that point, it would be impossible for him to go up in the past. So in the end, he gave up. Zhao Anji echoed, "They are all old foxes." The Yang family chose to leave at this point, which was a decision made after careful consideration. Zhao Anji did not believe that they were not prepared. Maybe they had calculated everything and were waiting for the desperate Qin family to come to them. Otherwise, when Qin Chang'an came to the Yang family, why did the Yang family not say anything at that time? The 4 words, "the highest bidder wins," had already explained the mentality of the Yang family. Since they chose to leave, the Yang family definitely wanted to maximize their benefit. Otherwise, how could the Yang family be willing to give up these shares? It was also because the Chang'an family was in deep trouble that the Yang family had to make such a decision. After all, the Yang family had been relatively low-key these years. They did not want to be pushed into the limelight when the time came. When the Chang'an family was in the limelight, the Yang family quietly made a fortune. When the Chang'an family was in danger, the Yang family left in such a way that they would not suffer a loss. One had to admit that the Yang family was really wishful thinking. However, would it really be so? What about the Qin family? How much are you going to pay? Zhao Zhenjuan was concerned. Although she could not help and was not willing to help, she still hoped that everything would go well for her sister. Zhao Anji was lost in thought. Chang Xini and Hao Mingyi had already calculated the value of the Yang family's shares. Naturally, they could not use the previous valuation. After all, when the Chang'an family was in the limelight, no one would sell it even if they had the money. It was not a matter of money. The Yang family did not want to suffer losses, nor did the Qin family. Therefore, they used the current valuation method of the Chang'an family. At the same time, after weighing various factors, they lowered the price by 20%. Even so, it was still an astronomical figure. However, the price offered by the Qin family was still a lot lower than the price offered by the Yang family. That was why Zhao Anji said that the Yang family was asking for an exorbitant price. Zhao Anji did not say the specific amount but said, "It's within a reasonable range, but much lower than the price offered by the Yang family." If the Yang family agrees, how is the money preparation going? Zhao Zhenjuan continued to ask. Zhao Anji did not hide anything. She said honestly, "It's still in preparation. This time, the Qin family is going all out." Zhao Zhenjuan was very clear that this time, the Qin family could not take money from the Chang'an family at any time like before. This time, it was the Qin family's private business. Such a large amount of money was definitely not an easy thing for the Qin family. Zhao Zhenjuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I think you really don't have to go through so much trouble. The Qin family still has so many properties. You should be satisfied. Just take it as a future for your children. Otherwise, if you really lose, the Qin family will have nothing. What's the use of the money if the people are gone? Even if they have nothing, it's enough to make a living." Zhao Anji replied. More than 20 years ago, the Qin family had gone through an unforeseen event. It was almost ruined. Qin Chang'an had spent more than 20 years to bring the Qin family to where it was today. It was not easy for the broken family to be reunited now. Although such a big thing had happened, the Qin family was not willing to go back to the past. Zhao Zhenjuan felt relieved. "Forget it. I've said what I should say. I hope you won't regret it in the future." Zhao Anji did not say anything. It was impossible to regret it. Even if she regretted it, she had to do it in the future. The Qin family had already made a bid. The Yang family did not give the Qin family a chance to bargain. They directly made a price that the Qin family could not accept. The most important thing was that the Yang family still did not give in. Why? They were waiting for Lord Lu to make a bid. As long as Lord Lu made a bid, the Yang family would not have to wait for the Yang family to make a bid. Naturally, the two sides would not fight badly. At that time, the final price might be higher than the price they had made. This was a business. However, it had been 3 days. It seemed that Lord Lu had not made any moves at all. This was somewhat thought-provoking. Neither the Yang family nor the Qin family believed that Lord Lu did not know about this. Was it still Lord Lu? Even if Lord Lu did not know, the Yang family and the Qin family had leaked the news. What on earth was Lord Lu thinking? Lord Lu was unmoved, but the Su family, the Li family, and Zhe Yuan were already a little flustered. They came to Lord Lu at the same time, hoping to discuss a solution that could satisfy all parties. They could not just sit and wait for death. This matter was not as simple as it seemed. If it was only for the benefit of the Chang'an faction, the families would not pay so much attention to it. They wanted to completely erase the Chang'an faction's matter so that they would not be implicated. Therefore, the only way was to let the Qin family be the scapegoat. In a golf course in the suburbs, the representatives of several families were already waiting for Uncle Lu, who was playing golf. Uncle Lu had long known that they had arrived, but he seemed to be in a good mood today. He was not in a hurry to end the game. No one knew if he deliberately let these people wait or if there were other reasons. However, before Uncle Lu came in, the other families were already discussing countermeasures. The opinions of the families were not unified. Some wanted the families to raise money to buy the Yang family's shares. This was the simplest and most direct way. Some wanted to put pressure on the Yang family and let the Yang family continue to remain neutral. This was the easiest way, but the Yang family might not buy it. Some wanted to directly attack the Qin family. They chose to take drastic measures to stop the Qin family's funds from all sides. This was also a good way. Therefore, everyone was waiting for Uncle Lu's opinion. Chapter 889. It wouldn't take long. The storm between the Qin family and the Chang'an family had lasted for a long time. Many people were eyeing the big cake of the Chang'an family, but no one dared to act rashly. Except for the Chang'an family, the shareholders were not easy to deal with. Maybe they would go for wool and come home shorn. Secondly, the matter of the Chang'an family had not been settled yet, so no one dared to take risk. Although wealth came from danger, not everyone could bear this kind of risk. Because of this, the tycoons of the Chang'an family wanted to settle the matter as soon as possible, in case of trouble. At that time, they would be attacked from all sides. No one wanted to put themselves in such a situation. Qin Chang'an represented the Chang'an family. If something happened to him, the Chang'an family would naturally be in turmoil. But so far, the explanation given by the Chang'an family to the outside world was that Qin Chang'an was assisting the official investigation. This kind of investigation was common for many tycoons who were in trouble. People often saw or heard all kinds of rumors on the internet that a tycoon might have been taken away by the official to assist in the investigation. But most of them would be safe and sound in the end, so people were used to it. Unless the official finally gave the result, that was, the tycoon was directly arrested. Because of this, everyone was smart and clear about the rules. If they acted recklessly at this time, Qin Chang'an would suddenly come back one day. With his strong means, how could it be impossible for him to take revenge? But for the tycoons of the Chang'an family, they would never let Qin Chang'an go. They must let Qin Chang'an die without a burial place. Because of this, they would be absolutely safe. Because of this, they had to take control of the Chang'an family. Now, the Yang family's sudden action completely disrupted everyone's plan. The Qin family did not hesitate to directly take over the Chang'an family. Everyone was in a mess in an instant. Then they had to turn to Sixth Uncle. After all, Sixth Uncle was a real veteran. Just when everyone was unable to convince each other, Sixth Uncle finally arrived late. Dressed very casually, wearing a cap and black sunglasses, Sixth Uncle looked very young. No one could tell that this old man would be an old man in his 70s after the new year. Yo, it's so lively. It's rare for you to be so relaxed. Do you want to go out and play? After coming in, Sixth Uncle took off his glasses and joked with the tycoons who were usually busy. The one from the Li family could not help but stand up and say, "Sixth brother, what time is it? Are you still in the mood to play golf? What time is it? What happened?" Sixth Uncle asked cheerfully. After sitting down, he signaled the waiter to bring him a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. This was the VIP lounge of the golf club, It was not a place that ordinary people could enter. These people were naturally not ordinary people. Could be said that any place like this in Siju City was a super VP. Zeyuan frowned slightly and stood up. Sixth uncle, do you really not know? The Yang family chose to sell their shares of the Chang'an Group, and the Qin family announced to the public that they would take over. Once they reach an agreement, we will lose completely. Yang family's family is Yang, T uncle, T and Yang is family, T Yang belong Yang, 6 T Yang Yang. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what sixth uncle meant by this. 6 and Yang. Shan uncle, 6 Yang 6. Yang Yang together, Li Yang sixth uncle was not in a hurry to give an answer. After waiting for the orange juice to be served, he waved his hand and let the irrelevant people in the VIP room leave. After all, they could not let outsiders know what they were talking about. Su Xingwei's father said in a low voice, "Sixth brother, since you already know it, you can still be so calm. It seems that you have already come up with a countermeasure. Then don't keep us guessing. Tell us about it. Don't make us panic." Sixth uncle took a sip of juice and said, "I don't have a plan, so I want to hear your opinions." "What? Sixth brother, are you kidding us? Right now, we're all in the same boat. If we die together. If you don't care, then we don't care either." The Li family was the first to be unable to sit still and loudly demanded. Su Xingwei's father was calm. He said again, "Okay, sixth brother, let's talk about it. First, the Yang family wants to sell and the Qin family wants to buy. This is a reasonable deal. No one can say anything. But the Yang family said that the highest bidder will get it. Now, only the Qin family and us can bid. Since the Qin family has bid, let's do the same. Let's see who is willing to give up." Zeyuan was the first to disagree. He said, "Uncle Su, as I said, we can buy it with real money. Our family doesn't have so much money. Even if we had the money, we would never buy it. If this matter is spread out, I guess it won't take long for us to be finished." "Then what do you think we should do?" Su Xingwei's father said disapprovingly. Zeyuan said slowly, "As I said, if the Yang family wants to sell, it is their business. If the Qin family wants to buy it, they need the money. The Qin family's shares are worth a lot of money. Can they afford it? Who is willing to lend them money at this time? As long as we block the Qin family's source of funds, it will be fine. If the Qin family has no money to buy it, who will the Yang family sell it to? In the end, the Yang family can only stay neutral, right?" Sixth uncle smiled and said affirmatively, "Zeyuan's suggestion is good. We can give it a try." Su Xingwei's father snorted. "Sixth brother, you mean we should follow Zeyuan's idea? But how many resources will we use, and how many people will we offend? Have you calculated this?" Zeyuan retorted, "Uncle Su, at least it is better than your idea. You." Su Xingwei's father was a little annoyed. Although Zeyuan's family had a good relationship, the Su family was not weak. At this time, the Li family stood out and said, "In my opinion, my idea is more reliable. None of you should compete. The Yang family is not the old Yang family. We don't have to be afraid of them. We can directly pressure them and let them stay neutral. I don't believe that the Yang family dares to offend us." Zeyuan sneered and said, "Uncle Li, you really don't take the Yang family seriously. Do you really think that the Yang family is the Yang family on the surface? The Yang family has been low-key these years, but it doesn't mean that the Yang family has no power. Let me ask you, who in your family has reached the position of the 2 elders of the Yang family? If the 2 elders of the Yang family were still alive, I am afraid that they would not even look at your family in the eye." Zeyuan's words were a little harsh. It was a naked slap in the face. The Li family's face was very ugly, but they did not know how to refute, because what Zeyuan said was true. The 2 elders of the Yang family used to be really prominent. However, since the Yang family declined, everyone had long forgotten their former glory. After all, in the pyramid of power in Siju City, If someone left, there would be someone else to replace him. Su Xingwei's father wanted to laugh, but he could not, so he could only hold it in. Even if his family faced the Yang family in the past, they did not have any power at all. Among the people present, only the sixth uncle's family had such confidence and power. At this time, the sixth uncle also said, "Zhe Yuan is right. The Yang family is really not as simple as it looks, whether in terms of qualifications or connections. So there is no need for us to offend the Yang family. If we put pressure on the Yang family, we will only offend more people. Who knows which family has received the Yang family's kindness in the past?" Okay, sixth brother, we have said what we should say. This can't be done, and that can't be done. What do you think we should do? Watch the Qin family buy the Yang family's shares and let all our previous efforts go to waste? The Li family felt embarrassed, so they simply did not care about it anymore. The sixth uncle said thoughtfully, "How can all our previous efforts go to waste?" His words gave everyone hope again. Everyone looked at the sixth uncle at the same time. Compared with the past, Zhe Yuan, who was particularly impatient today, said again, "Sixth uncle, just say it. I beg you. Why do we want to buy the Yang family's shares? Even if you have the money, are you willing to buy it? If the Qin family is willing to buy it, then let the Qin family buy it. I don't believe that the Qin family can raise so much money in a short time," the sixth uncle said disdainfully. Zhe Yuan said in surprise, "That's it?" The other two families also thought that if the sixth uncle only said so, it would be too far-fetched. Don't look down on the foundation of any family. Just like they looked down on the strength of the Yang family just now, who knew how much strength the Qin family had hidden. If they suddenly raised enough money and bought the Yang family's shares, they would be really stupid. The sixth uncle did not keep them guessing anymore. He said honestly, "Of course not, because these are not the most important things." Then what is the most important thing? The three families asked almost at the same time, because they knew that the sixth uncle was finally going to say the answer they wanted. At this time, the sixth uncle could be said to be sitting on a fishing platform. No one could see his trump card, and no one knew his strength. He looked at the crowd with a smile and slowly said the answer, "Because it will not be long, even if you ask the Yang family to sell the shares to the Qin family, the Yang family will not have the courage to do so." He gave the answer in one sentence, but this sentence made everyone confused again. What did he mean? The sixth uncle smiled and said nothing, because it would not be long before everyone knew it. Chapter 890. Everyone was confused by the sixth uncle's words. They weren't hotheads who didn't know anything. They were all old foxes who had been in Siju City or in the business world for many years, but they couldn't understand the sixth uncle's words. They didn't know if the sixth uncle was being perfunctory or deliberately keeping them in suspense. Everyone wanted to continue asking questions, but they didn't know where to start. Just now, sixth uncle said that although the Yang family had declined for so many years, and the two influential elders in the family had passed away many years ago, the Yang family was not as simple as it seemed. Now, sixth uncle said that even if the Yang family was asked to sell its shares to the Qin family, the Yang family would not have the guts to do so. Wasn't this contradictory? You can't decide everything just because you are sixth uncle. Or could it be that sixth uncle knew something that no one knew? Was it related to the Qin family or the Yang family? Sixth uncle enjoyed the feeling of strategizing. In the past, he was the leader of his generation, and everyone followed his lead. At that time, sixth uncle was high-spirited. Everyone could see how ambitious he was, but no one doubted his ability. Even the elders admired him very much. This was also the reason why sixth uncle's network and resources were so extensive. There was no one who didn't know sixth uncle. Nowadays, these big shots who were born as hedonistic playboys in Siju City back then were all little brothers in front of sixth uncle. When they met in private, they would probably call him sixth brother. Because of this, the Chang and faction could go so far so fast. Qin Chang'an was in the light, and sixth uncle was in the dark. The two of them complemented each other. However, in today's big environment, they had to go in the opposite direction, which made people sigh. Unfortunately, a person's fate was sometimes not in their own hands. In the end, they could only become an insignificant speck of dust under the general trend. Even a person like the sixth uncle was nothing more than this. The sixth uncle had never thought that he would end up like this, and many people had never thought that they would become the people they were today. The former was the sixth uncle. He wanted to be more than what he was today. He was ambitious and capable, and his background was unquestionable. Therefore, he wanted to go very, very far. Unfortunately, he took the wrong path in the end. One wrong step led to many wrong steps, and in the end, he could only become what he was now. Therefore, the sixth uncle had a huge grievance in his heart. However, as time passed, he had no choice but to bow his head and admit defeat. As for the latter, perhaps they didn't think so much back then. They just followed the prescribed order step by step. Some of them might have been their own ideas, and some might have been arranged by their parents. This was the thinking of most of the young people back then, because it seemed like that was the only way. However, just like that, they walked on inexplicably. In the end, they walked on a path where they could no longer turn back. Some of them found that things did not go as they wished. This was not the life they wanted to live, so they gradually gave up. Some could only brace themselves and continue on. Perhaps they would walk further and further, or perhaps their abilities were limited and they would be abandoned by this path. Some of these people had discovered a higher spiritual world. They moved forward bravely, cutting through all obstacles, and walked further and further. In the end, they had reached a height that everyone could only look up to. Thus, when he looked back at the past and the present, he could only sigh with emotion. This was true destiny. Retreat for people like Sixth Uncle and the others. No matter how bad their lives were, they were still much, much better than most ordinary people. This was because one's birth determined everything. The comfort they had now was all earned by the blood and sweat of their fathers, and some of them even lost their lives. Therefore, no one could say anything about them. These were all stories to be told later. Sixth Uncle might have thought about these things, or he might not have thought about them at all. At this moment, he just wanted to solve the problem at hand. Sixth Uncle looked at the crowd and said confidently again, "You don't have to worry about it anymore. This matter ends here. You only need to give me 1 week. In 1 week, you will know what I want to say." Everyone was still silent, but Sixth Uncle enjoyed the feeling of strategizing. He had been like this when he was young. At that time, he was definitely the most dazzling existence among his peers. The Su family was still somewhat worried and couldn't help asking, "What if 1 week passes?" Sixth Uncle said in a powerful voice, "After a week, you can do whatever you want. I have nothing to say. If the Qin family successfully gets the shares of the Yang family, I will compensate you for the losses you have suffered." The Li family muttered in a low voice, "How can your sixth uncle compensate us so easily? We didn't form an alliance for these interests. Although this is only part of the reason, we are more willing to let the Qin family pay for the first 20 years of the Chang faction." Sixth uncle said again, "Even if the Qin family gets the shares of the Yang family, I will have a way to deal with them. You just need to wait and see and leave the rest to me. Is that okay?" Since Sixth Uncle had said so, it was not appropriate for them to say anything else. After all, he was Sixth Uncle. Zhe Yuan stood out and said, "Then let's listen to Sixth Uncle. I believe that Sixth Uncle has already understood it. Let's wait for your news." Finally, this matter came to an end. Today, everyone's purpose had been met. After a short chat, they left. Sixth Uncle's indifference caused the Yang family to panic, but the Yang family didn't panic. They still had this bit of patience. They didn't believe that they couldn't wait for sixth uncle, this big fish. But as time passed, the Yang family became less and less confident. In the Binhai district of Tianjin, an elder of the Yang family was thinking about something while looking at the sea in the distance. It was a cloudy day, and it had just rained. The seaside was not as sultry as usual, but very cool. Yang Yi was wearing big pants and slippers. He found this uncle who was looking at him from the seaside. This uncle was not his biological uncle, but his paternal uncle. However, he was the eldest in the family, so all the juniors in the Yang family called him uncle. Yang Yi's uncle was the real backbone of the Yang family. In the past 2 days, all the seniors of the Yang family in contact with the Qin family had to listen to him. It was just that he didn't want to show his face in public. It had been like this all these years. The reason why the Yang family could be so low-key was also related to him. When his official career was at its most smooth, it was also the time when the Yang family was at its most glorious. At that time, the Yang family was really dazzling. However, a tall tree attracted the wind. When it reached its peak, it would fall. Once it fell, it could never stand up again. Since then, the 2 elders had completely left the center of power in Siju City. He had witnessed how the Yang family walked step by step to glory. He had also experienced how the Yang family got to where it was today, so he knew what the Yang family should do in the future. Uncle, there is still no news from sixth uncle. Did we calculate wrongly? Yang Yi asked with some doubts. That uncle was also old. He looked like an ordinary old man living a retired life. No one knew what he had experienced in his life. He always wore cloth shoes and coarse linen clothes. With his back to Yang Yi, he said, "Don't worry, wait a little longer. If there is still no news from sixth uncle, are we going to keep waiting like this?" Yang Yi continued to ask. The old man said decisively, "We don't have to wait too long. Just wait for 3 days. After 3 days, if there is still no news from him, we will sell the shares to the Qin family." "Really?" Yang Yi said with some regret. He felt that it was a little cheap to sell the shares like this. The old man turned around and stared at Yang Yi. "Yang Yi, how many times have I told you? Don't look at the immediate interests at any time. Our Yang family is not short of money, nor do we need it. What we want is a future. Do you understand?" "Uncle, I was wrong." Yang Yi quickly admitted his mistake. He knew that his uncle usually looked very amiable and approachable, and he didn't get angry very often. But if his uncle really got angry, no one would be able to stop him. The old man turned around and continued to say, "Let me tell you one more thing. If the Qin family doesn't want the shares, I will sell them to others. This storm in Chang, and is definitely not as simple as it seems. This is my intuition, just like when our Yang family was at its peak. Therefore, we must get away from this storm as soon as possible, and I think we have been too slow." After hearing this, Yang Yi's eyes were somewhat frightened. He was very clear about what his uncle was talking about. The reason why he was afraid was that his uncle's several guesses had finally been verified. These guesses were related to the future of the Yang family. Because of this, the Yang family had received a lot of favors, which were all related to the future of the Yang family. "Uncle." Yang Yi was somewhat worried. The old man's back was incomparably vicissitude. He waved his hand without looking back and said, "Don't ask anything else. If we are all gone, it will be the fate of the Yang family. But you don't need to worry. Others may die, but the Yang family will definitely not." "Uncle, I got it." Yang Yi nodded silently. The old man let out a long sigh and said, 3 days. Within 3 days, as long as there is any news from them, the highest bidder will get it. After 3 days, if there is no news, we will directly sell it to the Qin family at the price offered by the Qin family. We will not waste any time. When the old man said these words, his tone was not to be questioned. Yang Yi wanted to mutter a few more words, but he remembered that this old man was his uncle. In the end, he had to bear it. If he lost money, so be it. After all, it was his uncle who said this. Otherwise, if he annoyed his uncle, he would be in trouble. The sea was calm, but the wind seemed to be a little strong. The seemingly calm sea seemed to be, but no one knew what was under the sea. Who could know? Sixth uncle had been prepared, and the Yang family was also preparing for a rainy day. Could the Qin family, who had been coping with the situation, resist it this time? Chapter 891. The Last Straw. Chapter 891. The last straw, the last moment of this part has come to an end. Although the Yang family had been very low-key these years, it still could not cover up the glory of the past. Whenever people mentioned the Yang family, they would naturally talk about the past of the Yang family. Therefore, we have to admit that the glory of the family often covered the ability of the younger generation. If it were other people, they might think it was good to live in such glory for the rest of their lives, or they might think it was just a good skill to live in such a shadow for the rest of their lives, no matter how hard they worked. But for Yang Yi's uncle, he thought it was good. It was in line with the low-key strategy of the Yang family. When people mentioned the Yang family, they would only think of the past, and not the present, so they could make a fortune in silence. Yang Yi's uncle's style of doing things could be said to be swift and decisive. Although he was involved in the storm of the Yang family that year, and eventually did not have too many achievements in his official career, and could only retire as a department-level cadre, he had absolute authority in the huge Yang family, and no one dared to challenge his position. This was not because he was old or had a bad temper, but because his ability determined all of this. There was no need to elaborate on this point, because the Yang family had long since verified his abilities over the past few decades, and because of this, they trusted and felt at ease with him. As he said, there was no other pursuit in this life. The only thing he wanted to do was only two things. The first was to run the Yang family well, to ensure that the Yang family's descendants would be safe and carefree. The second was to cultivate more outstanding descendants for the Yang family, so that the Yang family would once again stand in the center of power in Siju City. At the beginning, the Yang family could enter the Chang'an faction, not only because the Yang family's influence was still there, but also because of Yang Yi's secret operation. He chose to invest in the Chang'an faction against the majority's opinion, and these years, the Yang family's descendants had gained a lot of benefits from it. Now he wanted to force them out, and the other Yang family members could not do anything. At least internally, the Yang family was more united than most families. No one else in the Yang family knew what Yang Yi's eldest uncle had seen or guessed. Although Yang Yi didn't know what his eldest uncle was thinking, he had absolute trust in his eldest uncle, so he wouldn't hesitate to carry out his eldest uncle's orders. After Yang Yi left, the man was not in a hurry to leave the seaside. Although the wind was strong, he looked very spirited. He was still calculating something, rehearsing all kinds of possible scenarios over and over again, as well as the possible responses of each family in various situations, and what kind of changes would be caused by each family's different responses. For ordinary people, this was as difficult as ascending to heaven, but for him, it was never tiring. It was as if winning against these opponents was more important than anything else. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. If some possibility was brought forward, the Yang family might not have enough time to leave. If that was really the case, then Godfather Lu's inaction could be explained. After the man thought of this possibility, he immediately deduced. The more he thought about it, the more he broke out in a cold sweat. That was impossible, right? Unknowingly, it was already the end of August. Summer was leaving and autumn was coming. The night was not as hot as before. Qin Sheng had been waiting for the news from the Yang family. It seemed that Auntie and the Yang family had not come to an agreement yet. However, Chang Sini and Hao Mingyi had estimated the value of the Yang family's shares. It was a number that Qin Sheng had never heard before. It was definitely an astronomical number for him, which gave him a headache. But did the Qin family have enough assets? Late at night, in the Sihyuan of the Qin family, Qin Shing asked the kitchen to prepare a few dishes to go well with wine and asked Gongsun, who just came back at night, to drink with him. He had not seen Uncle Gongsun for a few days. They had been contacting each other on the phone. He did not know if Uncle Gongsun could handle those big shots and whether he needed to show up. The wine wasn't any good wine, just an ordinary Red Star Ergotu. For a family like the Qin family, they didn't lack good wine. As long as they had money, what good wine couldn't they buy? Gongsun seldom drank. Sometimes he would drink with Qin Chang'an. It was rare for Qin Shing to be interested today. Of course, he would not let him down. He sat in the yard and drank with Qin Shing. Of course, he knew why Qin Shing wanted to drink. "Young master, do you want to ask me how is it going on here?" Gongsun sat down and asked directly. Qin Shing filled up Gongsun's glass and replied, "Uncle Gongsun, I believe you can handle them. But we don't have much time left. Aunt Chong and Uncle Hao can't handle it anymore. The shareholders' meeting will be held next week. If we can't get the Yang family's shares, we will really lose." Gongsun did not answer but asked, "How's the progress on Sister Zhao's side? The Yang family is asking for a lot more than we expected. Auntie is still bargaining with them, but the Yang family doesn't want to give in. Now the negotiation is in a state of anxiety." "Auntie has been to the Yang family several times," Qin Shing answered truthfully. Gongsun said quietly, "The Yang family is really not easy to deal with. I've talked to Auntie about this. According to our current information, sixth uncle hasn't contacted the Yang family. I guess the Yang family is waiting for sixth uncle's offer. That's why they're so perfunctory with us. But why is sixth uncle not doing anything until now? This is something we don't understand. I don't believe that he doesn't know that the Yang family wants to sell their shares and that the Qin family also wants to buy them." Qin Shing was very confused. Gongsun also frowned slightly and said, "This is really strange. If we get the Yang family's shares, then sixth uncle's previous efforts will be completely wasted. I don't believe that they will admit defeat like this. There must be some unknown conspiracy." "I don't know and I can't guess," Qin Shing said somewhat helplessly. Gongsun squinted and said, "This old fox. Uncle Gongsun, what about your side?" Qin Shing could not help but ask. These days, Gongsun had been busy with this matter. He had a plan in mind. He knew how many properties the Qin family had, and he was also very clear about who was responsible for what. So he knew what to do, and at the same time, he was waiting for their response. Gongsun said truthfully, "As young master said, there is no problem on Baofan's side. He said that he will try his best to raise funds, but it will take some time. The funds on the books are definitely not enough. Even if he sells the assets or mortgages, it will be difficult to complete in a short time. He hopes that we can give him enough time." "Well, I have thought about this long ago. So it depends on how we talk with the Yang family. I think as long as we reach a deal with the Yang family will also understand," Qin Shing said quietly. Gongsun continued to say, "Bao Fan has a suggestion. Many of the assets owned by the Qin family are high quality. If the Yang family is willing, they can find a professional agency to evaluate them. At that time, we can directly transfer them to the Yang family. This will save some time. This is also a way. It depends on whether the Yang family is willing or not," Qin Shing said affirmatively. Gongsun was very pleased and said, "Bao Fan did not let us down. What about the others?" Qin Shing asked with concern. Gongsun Zhang sighed and said, "Although they also gave a reply, I can see that they do not care as much as Bao Fan does. It is more likely that they will be perfunctory and delay. So it seems that I have to go to Dalian and Shenzhen." Qin Shing did not say anything. As expected, These two trusted subordinates cultivated by the Qin family with great care had hardened their wings. Were they going to draw a line with the Qin family? Even if they wanted to draw a line, they had to spit out what they had eaten from the Qin family. They could not take away what belonged to the Qin family. Uncle Gong's son, then I will have to trouble you. Qin Shing did not complain or pressure them. He had already thought of this possibility. After all, now that the old man was in trouble, how could these people not think of a way out for themselves? Gong's son also had other ways, but what the Qin family needed now was time. He did not want to waste this energy. It was better to directly deal with it himself. After Gong's son finished talking with Qin Shing, he directly left the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. He said that he would go directly to Dalian tomorrow, but he would not come back tonight because he needed to make some preparations. Qin Shing did not stop him, but only told him to pay attention to safety at all times. Late at night, the huge Sihiyuan of the Qin family was empty. There was no one except Qin Shing. Zhao Anji took Qin Ran and Qin Jing to the villa in the West Mountain. Nangong had been recuperating in her small home these days. Gong's son had also left. The only person who could accompany Qin Shing was Chang Baji. Somehow, it was already 2 o'clock in the morning, but Qin Shing still did not feel sleepy at all. Lying on the bed, he felt like a train was running through his mind. He also thought of his mother, who could only be recalled in photos. Then he thought of his grandfather, who had passed away several years ago, and the trivial life with his grandfather in Zhongnan Mountains. He thought of many old friends' stories, as if he had sorted out the first half of his life. The roads he had taken, the people he had met, and the things he had experienced were vivid in his mind. In the end, Qin Shing thought of Su Qin, who was far away in Xi'an, and Lin Su, who was in Shanghai, the two most important women in his life. One belonged to the past, and the other belonged to the present. One only had regrets and owed her, and the other wanted to cherish and protect. The older he grew, the more troubles he had. The older he grew, the more unhappy he was. Although life was like this and everyone could understand it, who did not want to live a simple life? The more he thought about it, the more Qin Shing could not fall asleep. In the end, he could only get up and go to the study room of the old man to flip through the old man's diary. It was not Qin Shing's intention to flip through it, but the old man let him read it. This also let Qin Shing know that it was not easy for the old man. However, what Qin Shing liked the most was the most ordinary days of the family of four, which were real, simple, and happy. This night passed just like this, but no one knew that this was the last peaceful night of the Qin family. In the early morning, Zhao Anji came to the Yang family again. This time, it was Yang Yi's uncle who received Zhao Anji in person. When she saw this man, Zhao Anji knew that there would be progress today. It seemed that the Yang family would not give in, which made her feel a little relieved. However, what she did not know was that when she was negotiating with the big boss of the Yang family, the last straw that broke the Qin family's back finally came. This time, no one could resist the arrival of the storm. The towering tree that was the Qin family was finally going to fall. Because at this moment, no matter who was browsing the news or Weibo on their mobile phones, they would see an explosive news. The chairman of the Chang'an group, Qin Chang'an, was suspected of serious economic crimes and was arrested by the public security organ according to law. Chapter 892. Yang Yi's uncle was called Yang Tong. He lived in a dilapidated 6-story building that didn't even have an elevator. Even the lights in the corridors were often broken. However, this old man was still willing to live here. For someone like him who cherished old times, it was fine as long as he lived comfortably. Otherwise, what was the point of living in a $10 million mansion? The neighborhood was an old neighborhood, and the neighbors were all old people. Most of them were retired colleagues of this ministry. Walking, and playing chess every day was more comfortable than anything else. This was a real retired life. A familiar environment, a familiar neighborhood, and a familiar rhythm of life were more important than anything else. Although this was an old neighborhood, it was a real school district. Any house was worth millions. This was Siju City, and no one could do anything about it. The neighborhood was full of private cars and electric cars. Zhao Anji asked the driver to stop downstairs, and then walked into the dilapidated building alone. She was very familiar with this kind of neighborhood because she lived in this kind of neighborhood when she went to Canada. Therefore, when she walked into this neighborhood, she felt very familiar. Yang Tong's wife was not around these days. It was summer vacation. She went to her daughter's house to take care of her grandson. Yang Tong did not want to go so far, so he could only stay in Beijing. There was a nanny at home who cooked and cleaned every day, so there was nothing to worry about. After a few seconds, the nanny of the Yang family came out and opened the door. She smiled and asked if it was Ms. Zhao. After getting a positive answer, she let Zhao Anji in. In the living room, Yang Tong had already made tea. He smiled and welcomed Zhao Anji. The nanny said politely that she was going out to buy things. As a nanny in such a big family, how could she not know what to do? Otherwise, she would be fired in a few days. Zhao Anji said lightly, "Yang Tong, I haven't seen you for more than 20 years. You have aged a lot." "Sister Zhao, you are also old," Yang Tong replied with a smile. Then, he invited Zhao Anji to sit down and personally poured tea for her. Yang Tong and Zhao Anji were not considered old acquaintances, nor did they have a deep friendship. It was just that Zhao Anji had seen him many times when she was in the country before, so they could be considered to know each other. After all, Siju City was only so big in the past. At the same time, this group of people who came from big families would, of course, see each other frequently. However, they all had their own different circles. Naturally, the military children like Yang Tong belonged to different circles. Zhao Anji took the teacup and sighed. "I've been in Canada for more than 20 years. How can I not grow old?" Before Zhao Anji went abroad, it was the Yang family's most glorious time. At that time, Yang Tong was definitely one of the most glorious hedonistic sons of rich parents in Siju City. Now, the Yang family had long declined, and Yang Tong looked just like an ordinary retired old man. "It's fine as long as you're old," Yang Tong said politely. Zhao Anji took a sip of tea and did not continue to exchange pleasantries. She did not want to waste too much time, so she said directly, "Yang Tong, you also know why I'm here today. These days, I've met with your Yang family 6 or 7 times. It's time to give me a result." "Sister Zhao, of course I know, but you also know that this is not a trivial matter, let alone can't be finalized in 1 or 2 days. I also hope that it can be done quickly, so please be considerate," Yang Tong responded with a smile. Zhao Anji said happily, "In this case, then tell me, what's the meaning of our meeting this time?" "Sister Zhao, of course this meeting is meaningful. Our Yang family has decided to sell all the shares of Chang and system to the Qin family. This is our final decision." Yang Tong did not perfunctory, but gave the most direct answer. Zhao Anji was a little surprised when she heard this, but she did not think that the Yang family would give in so easily. So she asked, "What about the price?" Yang Tong smiled and said, "The price, our Yang family is willing to make a concession and reduce it by another 2%. Sister Zhao, is that okay? 2%? Zhao Anji heard this price and laughed. For such a sky-high transaction, 2% was no different from no reduction at all. The most important thing was that the price offered by the Qin family was still far from the price offered by the Yang family. How could the Yang family be sincere? The Yang family was not sincere at all. So Zhao Anji said bluntly, "Yang Tong, since I have discussed this matter with your Yang family again and again, it shows that our Qin family really needs the shares of the Yang family. You also know why we need it. But if you take advantage of the burning house, then I don't think it's necessary for us to continue the discussion. We will not be a fool for such a small amount of shares. What's more, we all know why the Yang family has been so stubborn. You are waiting for Brother Six to make a price, right? But as far as I know, Brother Six has not made a move and has not contacted the Yang family at all. So now you can't wait any longer, so you suddenly give in. Do you think our Qin family is stupid? Sister Zhao, you can't say that. Yang Tong shook his head and smiled bitterly. They were all old foxes. Obviously, it was impossible for the Yang family to cut a piece of meat from the Qin family. Uncle Six's indifference disrupted the Yang family's plan and made the Yang family become passive. Yang Tong was also somewhat helpless. Who knew it would be like this? Zhao Anji did not want to continue to argue with the Yang family. She stood up directly and said, Yang Tong, I will say it for the last time today. If the Yang family wants to sell the shares in your hands, then the price of the Qin family shall be the standard. If the Yang family is not willing to sell, then the Yang family can continue to hold it. As for whether you support Brother Six or remain neutral at that time, it is meaningless to the Qin family. Sister Zhao, don't be impulsive. We can continue to talk. Yang Tong comforted Zhao Anji. Zhao Anji pressed her step by step and said, There is no need to talk anymore. Tell me, are you selling or not? The Yang family was not simple, and the Qin family was not simple. Both sides had already figured out each other's trump card. It depended on who had the initiative. This initiative would change according to the situation. Now that the Qin family had the initiative, the Yang family had no chance to choose. If they sold, they could only sell it according to the price of the Qin family. If they did not sell, they could only smash it in their hand. Anyway, Master Lu would definitely not buy it. The actual situation of the Yang family was that the Yang family wanted to avoid a possible storm. Yang Tong fell into deep thought. The Qin family did not have much time, and the Yang family did not have too much time. If Master Lu did not make a price, the Yang family could only choose to sell to the Qin family. Yang Tong thought about what he had deduced that night. If that thing really happened, the Yang family wouldn't even have the chance to sell it, let alone sell it to the Qin family. Therefore, the Yang family had to make a choice. Yang Tong's choice was to sell it to the Qin family at the Qin family's price. Just when Yang Tong was about to speak, the phone on the table suddenly rang. At this critical moment, the urgent ringtone was a little abrupt. Yang Tong saw that the caller ID was his nephew, Yang Yi. He was a little unhappy and directly hung up the phone. Then he looked at Zhao Anji and said, I'm sorry, Sister Zhao. Zhao Anji did not say anything and waited for Yang Tong's reply. At this time, Yang Tong's phone rang again. This time it was still Yang Yi. Yang Tong frowned and thought about what Yang Yi wanted. Usually, if he took the initiative to hang up the phone, Yang Yi would definitely not continue to call if there was nothing urgent. Just when he was hesitating whether to answer the phone or not, Zhao Anji's phone also rang. They looked at each other tacitly and smiled a little embarrassedly. Yang Tong took the initiative to pick up the phone and walk to the balcony. In this way, Zhao Anji could also answer the phone. She took out the phone to see who was calling and found that it was Qin Ran. She answered the phone without hesitation. On the balcony, Yang Tong had just answered the phone. Before he could question Yang Yi, he heard Yang Yi gasping and shouting, Uncle, something bad happened. Something bad happened. Look at the news. Qin Chang'an was arrested. When he heard the news, Yang Tong's mind instantly went blank. The worst possibility had really come, and it was earlier than he had expected. The Yang family did not have time. When the storm started, no one could be spared. In the living room, Zhao Anji also answered the phone. On the other side of the phone, Qin Ran was already crying and crying. Auntie, something bad happened. My father was arrested. Arrested? Zhao Anji's face was pale. She was very clear about what Qin Ran meant by being arrested. Although Qin Chang'an had been arrested, he had only been assisting in the investigation. Even the announcement of the Chang'an family to the public said that he was only assisting in the investigation. Assisting in the investigation did not mean anything. Many big shots had the experience of assisting in the investigation. However, if Qin Chang'an was arrested, something bad must have happened. After coming to her senses, Zhao Anji did not hesitate at all. She did not even have time to say goodbye to Yang Tong. She directly picked up her things, turned around, and walked away quickly. To the Qin family, this news could be said to be like a thunderclap. It directly crushed the already fragile Qin family. All the efforts of the Qin family in the past few months were in vain. At this moment, everyone involved in this storm, which involved the Qin family and the Chang'an family, had already known this news. It could be said that it was a pot of porridge. Everyone was busy. It was estimated that no one could tell what the situation would be like next. Qin Chang'an had been arrested, which meant that the higher level of the game had already ended, which meant that the Qin family had lost. In the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, before the news came, Qin Xing, who had fallen asleep until 5 o'clock in the morning, had not woken up yet. The first person to see the news was Brother Wu. Brother Wu's favorite thing to do every day was to read the news. When he saw this serious news on his mobile phone, his reaction was similar to that of most people in the Qin family. That was, his mind went blank. However, the first thing Brother Wu did when he came to his senses was to rush to Qin Xing's room in a panic. At this time, for the Qin family, time was more important than anything else. As the current helmsman of the Qin family, Qin Xing had to bear all the pressure. Night had fallen. No one knew whether the Qin family could see the dawn. Chapter 893. He had just arrived in Beijing yesterday, and would be staying there for more than a month. In the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Qin Xing, who did not know what had happened outside, was still sleeping. Chang Baji was practicing boxing in the yard. Several bodyguards of the Qin family surrounded him to learn. Chang Baji did not feel disgusted or stop them. There were many things in this world that required talent. However, one had to exert one's efforts to the extreme in order to use talent. When Gongsun was around, he was in charge of the security of the Qin family. No one had any doubts about Gongsun because he was Master Qin's #1 confidant. Now that Master Qin was in trouble and Qin Xing took over, Gongsun took the initiative to hand over the security to Chang Baji. Compared to him, Qin Xing trusted Chang Baji more. Chang Baji didn't have Gongsun's experience, so how could he convince the bodyguards of the Qin family? Of course, he had to fight with his real ability. Chang Baji welcomed anyone to challenge him. At that time, there were a few people who were not convinced. They thought that Chang Baji could get to where he was because of his relationship with the young master. The final result was self-evident. How could they be a match for Chang Baji? They were not at the same level at all. From then on, they had no complaints. When Brother Wu saw the news, he did not even have the chance to greet Bahi. He rushed over. Chang Baji stopped him subconsciously. Since the betrayal in Hangzhou, Chang Baji did not dare to trust anyone. Even though he had known Brother Wu for so long, he still did not dare to trust him completely. "What's wrong?" Chang Baji frowned and asked. Brother Wu did not have time to explain clearly. He could only shout, "Something's wrong. Wake up, young master." Chang Baji was more or less confused. What had happened to make Brother Wu so flustered? Brother Wu was usually calm and experienced. However, before he could come back to his senses, Brother Wu had already rushed into the main hall and headed towards Qin Xing's bedroom on the second floor. There were no more obstacles along the way. Chang Baji followed closely behind. At the door of Qin Xing's bedroom, Brother Wu used all his strength to knock on the door and shouted, "Young master, wake up! Young master, wake up! Something's wrong." Something's wrong. Qin Shing heard someone shouting in a daze. Usually, he would wake up at the slightest sound. But today, he did not know why he was so sleepy that he could not open his eyes. Who asked him to sleep so late last night? Even if he fell asleep, he kept dreaming. Maybe it was because he was in the Sihyuan of the Qin family that he could sleep so peacefully. Young master, get up quickly. Something has happened. Brother Wu continued to shout. This made Brother Wu and Chang Baji, who were outside the door, even more anxious. Chang Baji had never seen Brother Wu lose his composure like this. He believed that something big must have happened. Otherwise, why would Brother Wu act like this? Chang Baji thought to himself. Chang Baji couldn't care less. He pulled Brother Wu away and used all his strength to use the Baji mountain lean to knock the door open. Chang Baji's mountain lean could break a tree, let alone knock a door open. When the door was knocked open, Qin Shing was completely awakened from his sleep. He sat up abruptly and stared at Chang Baji and Brother Wu. He subconsciously shouted angrily, "What are you doing?" Brother Wu panted and replied in a hurry, "Young master, something big has happened. Master Qin has been arrested." Qin Shing, who had not come to his senses, was directly shocked by Brother Wu's news. He looked at Brother Wu blankly, looking like a lonely and lost ghost. But before he could figure out what was going on, he heard the phone on the bedside vibrate again. This was the 9th missed call. Zhao Anji and Qin Ran were already as anxious as ants on a hot pan. They had called Qin Shing 7 or 8 times in a row, but they could not get in touch with him. How could they not be anxious when they could not get in touch with Qin Shing at this time? Qin Shing did not have time to adjust his mood. He hurriedly picked up the phone and heard Zhao Anji shouting on the other side of the phone, "Shinger, leave the Sihyuan, quickly." Even if Qin Shing did not know what was going on, he knew that something big had happened. A few minutes later, Qin Shing, who had just gotten up, did not have time to wash up. He directly left the Sihyuan with Chang Baji and the others without hesitation and went to the West Mountain Villa. There were only a few servants and 2 or 3 bodyguards left in the Qin family's Sihyuan. At this time, the Qin family's Sihyuan had become the center of the storm. It would not take long for a large number of reporters to surround it. At that time, anyone from the Qin family who appeared here would become their prey. This was also the reason why Zhao Anji asked Qin Shing to leave as soon as possible. Just as Zhao Anji thought, not long after Qin Shing left, the gate of the Qin family's Sihyuan was packed. Who would not want to be the headline of such big news? On the way to the West Mountain Villa, Qin Shing had already figured out what was going on. He had been thinking about the sentence, suspected of serious economic crimes. For most people, these words seemed simple, but for the Qin family, these words were as heavy as Mount Tai. The Qin family could not breathe and completely collapsed. All the efforts of the Qin family in the past few months had been in vain. The Qin family had completely lost. What should the Qin family do? In the headquarters building of the Chang'an department, Chang Sini and Hao Mingyi sat in the office and looked at each other. When everyone was trying their best to regain control of the Chang'an department, such a big thing happened. No one had expected it, and no one wanted to see it, because this big news had already sealed the coffin of Master Qin's case. Arresting according to law and assisting in the investigation were 2 concepts. If it was just assisting in the investigation, there would still be hope for both Master Qin and the Qin family. But if it was arresting according to law, there would be no turning back for Master Qin's case, and the Qin family would be completely collapsed. "Mingyi, what should we do next?" Chang Sini asked with a headache. They were originally on the Qin family's side. If the Qin family lost, they would also lose. At this moment, a large number of reporters and media had gathered outside the Chang'an department. Even the phones of all the departments were exploding with calls. They all wanted to know the inside information through various connections and channels. Hao Mingyi and Chang Xini had no chance to leave the company. Now they could only bite the bullet and think of ways to suppress everything. Moreover, there was a bigger crisis ahead. How could Lord Lu and the others miss such an opportunity? Hao Mingyi said helplessly, "What else can we do? We've lost." After this incident, there is no need to hold the following shareholders' meeting, and no one will support the Qin family at this time. Everyone will avoid them. Uncle Lu and the others can be said to have completely controlled the Chang'an department. Just now, Uncle Lu called a temporary board meeting without us. As for the purpose, I don't need to say. It must be how the Chang'an department will announce this to the public. It's impossible for Sister Zhao and Qin Sheng to attend the board meeting. Even if they do, it's useless. We don't have the power to turn the situation around. I guess we'll just pack up and leave after the board meeting. Chang Xini shook her head and smiled bitterly. No one wanted to see that, but no one could stop it. Hao Mingyi laughed at himself and said, "Then let's stand on the last post for the Qin family. It can also be considered as repaying Master Qin's kindness." As Hao Mingyi and Chang Xini thought, the Qin family had completely lost. It was impossible for them to regain control of the Chang'an department. No one would support the Qin family. The others would only choose to be neutral, while Lord Lu's side won without a fight. Therefore, there was no need to hold the shareholders' meeting. Lord Lu had already overwhelmingly controlled the board of directors, and thus completely controlled the Chang'an department. Then all the announcements and explanations of the Chang'an department would be disadvantageous to the Qin family and Qin Chang'an, and the Qin family could do nothing about it. It was impossible for Zhao Anji and Qin Sheng to show up at this time. What they needed most now was to stay away from the limelight. It was necessary for Hao Mingyi and Zhao Anji to stay and tell the Qin family the first-hand news. As they said, after Lord Lu took control of the board of directors, the first thing he would do was to clean them up. From then on, the Chang'an department had entered the era of Lord Lu. In the West Mountain villa of the Qin family. When Qin Sheng arrived, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran were busy talking on the phone. From their expressions and tone, one could tell how much pressure they were under at this moment. The first thing Chang Baji did when he arrived was to tell everyone to stop anyone from approaching the West Mountain villa of the Qin family. At the same time, he completely blocked the surrounding area within 1 kilometer to ensure the Qin family's basic safety and privacy. After Qin Sheng came in, Qin Ran immediately hung up the phone and walked over quickly. When she stood in front of Qin Sheng, she could not help but directly rush into Qin Sheng's arms and hug him tightly. Qin Sheng comforted her with a bit of heartache. "Sister, it's okay. It's just a piece of news. Nothing will happen to our father. Don't worry." Qin Ran silently shed tears. In order not to affect others, she did not dare to cry. She knew that Qin Sheng was comforting her. He had grown up in Siju City. How could he not know the consequences of this piece of news? A few minutes later, Qin Ran finally calmed down. Then Qin Sheng walked to the aunt and asked, "Aunt, what's the situation now?" Chang Xini called. "Sixth uncle has already held a temporary board meeting. They may discuss how to announce this matter to the public," Zhao Anji said with a frown. She was under more pressure than anyone else, because she was the only elder who could take charge of the Qin family now. Qin Sheng said in a low voice, "Can't we stop them?" Zhao Anji said with relief, "Qin Sheng, our Qin family has lost, and we have to admit it. The Chang'an system is now in the bag of sixth uncle." She had just called sixth uncle, but he did not answer at all, which had already shown his attitude. Qin Sheng continued to ask, "What about the shareholders' meeting?" Zhao Anji laughed and said, "Qin Sheng, who do you think will support us at this time? Everyone will only avoid us. Just now, the Yang family called me. After discussion, they decided to take back the shares of the Chang'an department. They will not sell it in a short time. The Yang family has already done it. I guess others will not even answer the phone." Hearing this news, Qin Sheng did not know what to say for a while. All this seemed to be expected. If it were the Qin family, they would also do the same. At this moment, Gongsun's call came. Qin Sheng answered the phone subconsciously. Gongsun said in a low voice, "I already know what happened in Beijing. I have another bad news to tell you. You have to be mentally prepared. They refuse to see me." Chapter 894. Probably not. For most people, this might be an ordinary morning. They would go to work, go to school, or do morning exercises. However, for those who were closely related to the Chang'an branch, this was definitely not an ordinary morning. A piece of news might change the fate of many people. As for the Qin family, this was definitely the darkest morning. When they saw the news, the fate of the Qin family seemed to have been sentenced to death. Qin Chang'an was arrested. From then on, the Chang'an branch had nothing to do with the Qin family and became the spoils of war of Lord Lu and the others. The other shares of the Chang'an branch all changed sides or remained neutral. The Qin family had no other allies. The two commanders of border provinces in the Qin family avoided meeting the Qin family, which was equivalent to betrayal. Bad news came one after another, directly smashing the Qin family. It seemed that the Qin family would never have a chance to rise again. This was definitely not the end. It might just be the beginning. There might be more bad news later. The Qin family was completely defeated. What should the Qin family do? In the West Mountain villa of the Qin family, Qin Sheng's heart was calm after hearing the news from Gongsun. Compared with other news, this news was not so destructive. He just said lightly, "Uncle Gongsun, I got it. You can come back now." Gongsun wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. It seemed that he did not want to let it go like this. He had promised Qin Sheng confidently, but now it became like this. He thought that he was too ashamed to go back to Beijing to see Qin Sheng. However, now the Qin family was in the most critical time. These were just some small things. Going back to Beijing was the most important thing. Gongsun nodded silently and hung up the phone. Then he directly chose the nearest flight back to Beijing. Zhao looked at Qin Sheng and asked, "Sheng, what's wrong?" The others also looked at Qin Sheng with concern, for fear that something big had happened. At this time, the Qin family was already in a precarious situation. It really could not withstand any more storms. However, Qin Sheng did not explain anything. He just said, "Uncle Gongsun said that he got the news. I asked him to come back now." At this time, no one can help, Zhao Anji said with some emotion. Qin Sheng was both mentally and physically exhausted. This blow was too big for both him and the Qin family. He did not know what to do anymore. There would come a time when one's strength was exhausted. The Qin family had worked so hard for so long, but the final result was the truth. No one could accept it. Qin Sheng sat on the sofa in a daze. At this moment, he had no time to care about other people. He closed his eyes and began to ponder. Was the Qin family really finished? If possible, what other way was there? A few minutes seemed very short, but to Qin Sheng, it felt like a few centuries. He thought about a lot of things and also thought about a lot of possibilities. Thinking that there were so many people in this family, he felt that he could not admit defeat so easily. Auntie, sister, Yaya, and many other people needed him. He could not fall down. He absolutely could not fall down. If he gave up, who could support this family? Qin Sheng suddenly stood up and said to the crowd, "We can't give up like this. The Chang'an family is gone, but we still have the Qin family. As long as we do everything we can, there will be a way to change the situation. Now the old man has just been arrested, but he has not been sentenced yet. We must do everything we can to make the old man's ending as good as possible. As long as all the people in the Qin family are still alive, one day the Qin family will stand up again." Although Qin Shing's words gave everyone a shot of adrenaline and let them see hope again, most people still knew in their hearts that it was just in vain. Who could reverse the situation? However, when Zhao Anji heard Qin Shing's words, even if she did not believe it, she could not let everyone despair. She also echoed, "Well, we will never give up. I will find a way to inquire about the news." Qin Shing seemed to think of something and said to the crowd, "I'm going out. I will come back later." After that, Qin Shing directly left the West Mountain Villa. No matter how big the trouble was, if he only had to stay here and wait, he absolutely could not do it. After Qin Shing left, Chang Baji also left. Now the Qin family had become the focus of attention. At any time, other kinds of accidents could happen. He had to stay by Qin Shing's side. However, he left Yujbak in the West Mountain Villa. He was not at ease without Gongsun. Zhao Anji also got busy. At this time, there was no other way. She had to give everything for the Qin family. Even if she had to be thick-skinned, she had to beg them one by one. If everyone could not do it, she would force Qin Changxing to come back. Qin Ran pondered for a while and immediately ran upstairs. After locking the door, she directly dialed the phone number of her small aunt. After a while, Zhu Qingwen answered the phone. Before Qin Ran could speak, Zhu Qingwen said softly, "Small aunt knows. If you want to cry, just cry. You will always be a child in my heart." Hearing this, Qin Ran couldn't hold it in anymore. She burst into tears. At this moment, Zhu Qingwen had just arrived in Guangzhou to attend an academic exchange meeting. She also knew this news when she saw the news. However, her brother had already prepared her, so she was not surprised by this news. The moment she saw the news, she thought of those two poor children. They lost their mother when they were young and grew up stumbling. Now that they had experienced such a big storm, they had no one to help them, so they had to bear it themselves. How could she not feel sorry for them? After a long time, Qin Ran finally cried enough. Although she did not want to cry, when she heard her small aunt's voice, she could not help but want to cry. Since she was a child, her grandmother, small aunt, and uncle loved her the most. She almost grew up in the Zhu family. Therefore, whenever she had any grievances, the Zhu family would support her. It was the same now. After waiting for Qin Ran to stop crying, Zhu Qingwen said, "Have you cried enough?" Qin Ran sobbed in a low voice. "Small aunt, please save my father with uncle. Small aunt, I beg you." Ran, how do you want us to save him? Ask your uncle to plead with the leaders? Even if your uncle is willing, do you think the leaders will agree to it? This isn't a child's game. This is a matter of national importance. No matter if it's young aunt or your uncle, none of us have the qualifications or should interfere. Moreover, do you know what sort of consequences it would bring to the Zhu clan if we interfere? Zhu Qingwen said earnestly, "Small aunt, I know you are worried about your father, but things are not as bad as you think. Your father is in this situation because of him. As long as he cooperates with the investigation, I think he will have a good ending." Qin Ran seemed to have lost her mind. She wiped away her tears and said, "Small aunt, are you really not willing to plead for my father? Do you really want to see my brother and me being bullied?" Zhu Qingwen felt a headache. She was most afraid of Qin Ran like this. She said helplessly, Ran, this is not only my idea. If you don't believe me, you can ask your uncle again. In fact, we have helped a lot, but you just don't know it." Qin Ran stopped being unreasonable. Instead, she said, "Small aunt, then what do you think my brother and I should do? Is this the only way?" Zhu Qingwen continued to say, Ran, when some things are beyond your ability, don't struggle anymore. It will be what it will be. You can't change the result. What you need to do is to think of a way out and stop your losses in time. You still have a future. She was naturally thinking about the siblings. Zhu Qingwen's point of view was naturally for the sake of the siblings. Qin Ran did not speak anymore. She was stunned for a few seconds and said, "Small aunt, I understand." Everyone knew about what had happened to the Qin family. At this moment, Master Lu's place was unusually lively. Zhe Yuan brought Su Xingwei over to congratulate Master Lu. Su Xingwei's father was on a business trip, so he did not come. However, he had already called Master Lu. Once this matter was exposed, the Qin family would be completely destroyed. As for the Li family, they had also spoken to Master Lu on the phone. However, in order to avoid arousing suspicion, they did not come over at this critical moment. Sixth uncle, no wonder people in Siju City say that sixth uncle is the real omnipotent. Today, I finally see it for myself. It turns out that you have long known about this. That's why you are not moved no matter how much trouble you ask for leave. Zhe Yuan directly flattered him. Sixth uncle drank his tea and smiled without saying a word. Who was he? He had experienced so much to get to where he was today. If he did not have this ability, he might have been played to death by others long ago. Su Xingwei also echoed, "Ha ha ha, Master Lu is really amazing. Even my father is convinced. I guess the Yang family must be regretting it now. Now, not to mention selling the shares to the Qin family, they can't even get in touch with the Qin family. Moreover, they have offended us. The Yang family has really made a wrong move. It's really a case of going for wool and coming home shorn." Sixth uncle said disapprovingly, "No matter how powerful the Yang family is, it is no longer the Yang family in the past. If the two elders were still here, now the Yang family would not be able to be provoked by anyone. There would be no successor." "Sixth uncle is right," Zhe Yuan said with a smile. Su Xingwei went straight to the point and said, "Master Lu, what about the Chang and school now?" Zhe Yuan said happily, "What else can we do? The Chang and school is now in our pocket. Sixth uncle and I have already called for a temporary board meeting to discuss a series of things. The first thing is to push everything to Qin Chang'an. The Chang'an school is the Chang'an school, and Qin Chang'an is Qin Chang'an." "Will the Qin family agree?" Su Xingwei asked casually. Zhe Yuan replied, "What can they do if they don't agree? Do we still need to hold a shareholders' meeting now? I guess all the shareholders will agree except for the Qin family. So there is no need to change the board of directors. We have completely controlled the board of directors. I guess the Qin family will not participate in the meeting. The rest will be easy." Su Xingwei always had a bad feeling. He frowned and said, "Master Lu, Uncle Zhe Yuan, do you think this matter will become more and more serious and eventually involve us?" Su Xingwei's words were considered as being prepared for danger in times of peace. Maybe he thought more than many people. His words made Master Lu and Zhe Yuan fall into deep thought. Maybe they had also thought about this problem and considered all kinds of possibilities, but they did not know the result. Master Lu said thoughtfully, "Probably not. Probably not, but not absolutely not. So there was still a possibility." Chapter 895. Man proposes, but God disposes. Not everyone could be as clever as Zhuge Liang. Sixth uncle was not an immortal. Otherwise, he would not be where he was today. Most of those followers in his eyes were now high-ranking officials. Every time sixth uncle thought of it, how could he not feel a little resentful? No one knew to what extent this storm would develop, and sixth uncle couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't be implicated. At least for the current situation, he felt that everything was still under control. Others couldn't be so sure because they weren't strong enough, but he was sixth uncle. According to the usual practice of this kind of storm, Qin Chang'an would be arrested and sentenced. As for the final result, sixth uncle did not need to worry about it. He had done what he should do. He could not really kill them all. After all, he had been with the Qin family for so many years, so he had to show some mercy. Therefore, sixth uncle did not intend to continue to pressure them. Next, the Chang, an organization, would definitely have to scrape its bones and heal its wound. Whether it was the official notification, supervision, etc., or the internal rectification and purge, it would take time to wear down. It could not be finished in a short time. Sixth uncle knew very well what to do. The Chang, an organization, must absolutely keep a low profile in a short time. It could not be the focus of the public and the officials anymore. When everyone gradually forgot about this matter, he would quietly reform the Chang, an organization. After weighing the interests of all parties, the Chang, an organization, would definitely be divided by all parties. At that time, everyone would take what they needed and make a fortune quietly. The Chang, an organization, would disappear completely. When the public came to their senses, maybe a new consortium similar to the Chang, an organization, would appear again. However, sixth uncle did not have such a big ambition. He only intended to leave it to his descendants. As for how they would operate it, it was up to them. Anyway, after Qin Chang'an was arrested, sixth uncle finally let out a long sigh of relief. The open and secret struggle with Qin Chang'an for 2 years finally ended, and he finally won. Previously, he did not have much confidence in his heart. After all, Qin Chang'an was not an ordinary person, and the Qin family also had a strong background. If his wife did not die, plus the current background of the Zhu family, he might not be a match for Qin Chang'an. In order to be foolproof, he had roped in several other families. Since everyone had common interests and goals, and they had been friends for many years, they hit it off. Qin Chang'an was eliminated. Now, sixth uncle could finally rest. The next step was to reorganize the Chang, and school, and wait for a long time to pass. Maybe it would take 1 or 2 years, or even 3 or 5 years. He could afford to wait. After Qin Sheng left the West Mountain villa of the Qin family, he went straight to the Sihiyuan of the Song family in the West District. When he met old Master Song last time, he had given him a positive answer. Now that such an accident had happened, Qin Sheng was not confident. He had to meet old Master Song again to ensure that the Qin family still had a chance to struggle. In fact, it did not matter much whether they met or not. Even if the matter was settled, could the Qin family only watch Qin Chang'an's tragic end helplessly? No matter what the result was, the Qin family would continue to struggle. At least, they would have a chance. When Qin Sheng arrived at the Sihiyuan of the Song family, Song Ryu had been waiting for a long time. It seemed that she had known that Qin Sheng would come to the Song family, so she had been waiting here for a long time. The Song family did not stop Qin Sheng from entering. After entering, Qin Sheng was not surprised to see Song Ryu. After all, this was the Song family. It was not surprising to see Song Husheng. "Ryu, is Grandpa Song here?" Qin Sheng asked directly, without any concealment. Song Ryu still had an outstanding temperament. These days, she had been on vacation. She looked at Qin Sheng and replied, "Grandpa is not here. He is in the hospital." Qin Sheng was surprised to hear this news. At this time, no matter how anxious he was, he had to ask old Master Song about his situation first. Otherwise, he would be too eager for quick success. "Why is Grandpa Song in the hospital?" Qin Sheng asked in a hurry. Song Ryu replied calmly, "Nothing serious. It's just some old problems. He has to stay in the hospital for a period of time every year." Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, "That's good." Since old Master Song was not here, Qin Sheng could not continue to ask about that matter. Originally, the Song family had a lot of opinions about him, especially Song Husheng. He really did not know how he had offended him. Thinking of what Song Husheng had said last time, Qin Sheng looked at Song Ryu cautiously. It seemed that he had better not let the Song family misunderstand him, so he was ready to leave. When Qin Sheng was about to leave, Song Ryu took the initiative to say, "Grandpa already knows about what happened to Uncle Qin. He also knew that you would definitely come, so he asked me to wait for you here." Qin Sheng was surprised and asked, Grandpa asked you to wait for me? Song Ryu took 2 steps forward and said, Yes. Grandpa asked me to tell you that what happened might not be a bad thing. You don't have to be so anxious. Unless something unexpected happens, the worst result is unlikely to happen. Hearing this, Qin Sheng was lost in thought. Did Grandpa Song already know something? That was why he said those words to him last time. It seemed that he was a little anxious. Song Ryu continued, Qin Sheng, what you need to worry about most now is what the Qin family will do. You have to control the general direction, otherwise others will not know how to help you. Song Ryu's words surprised Qin Sheng again. He could not help but guess what she meant. He did not know whether it was Song Ryu or Old Master Song who wanted to say it. Qin Sheng thought for a long time and did not say anything more. He just said, Yes, I see. After talking about these serious matters, Song Ryu was not as serious as before. She said softly, Are you under a lot of pressure? It would be too hypocritical to say that I am not. I am just an ordinary person, Qin Sheng said honestly. Since the Qin family had been in trouble, he had been under more and more pressure. He wanted to relieve all the pressure, but God did not give him a chance. On the contrary, he was under more pressure. Song Ryu did not know how to comfort Qin Sheng. After all, it had never happened to her. She had seen too many people of the same age who had been arrogant and domineering, but in the end, they were defeated by reality. Qin Sheng was much better than most of them. Some people stood too high and might not be able to recover after falling down. Song Ryu continued to ask, How is your family? Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. How can it be? Qin Sheng, even if you don't have a lot of things, you can still live a good life. Sometimes. Song Ryu wanted to tell him not to be so greedy and to be content with what he had. She wanted to stop the Qin family's losses in time. It might not be a good thing for the Qin family if they continued to waste time like this. However, Song Ryu didn't say it in the end. Qin Sheng seemed to be able to guess what Song Ryu wanted to say. He replied, Ryu, thank you. I know what to do. Even if there is nothing left, what can I do? Song Ryu could not persuade Qin Sheng anymore, so she had to give up. All the men in the Qin family were like this. They would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Maybe they were right, but no matter what, they had to bear the result. Qin Sheng did not stay in the Song family for long. He had other things to do. At this time, the Qin family had become the focus of attention. It was not suitable for Qin Sheng to be too high-profile, or he would only arouse the resentment of some people. However, Qin Sheng could find someone else to do it, namely the He family. It was so difficult to ask for leave. It was time for the He family, the guardian family, to take action. Over the years, the He family had accumulated enough resources in Siju City. It was time to use them. Although Qin Sheng was selfish, and this would completely expose the relationship between the He family and the Qin family, which would cause the He family to be involved in the Qin family's troubles, and the He family might pay a price. However, without the Qin family in the past, there would be no He family today. The He family also said that they were willing to fulfill their promise and would do their best. Qin Sheng could only do this. After leaving the Song family, Qin Sheng closed his eyes and rested in the car, thinking about what he should do next. He did not want to contact his uncle and small aunt, nor did he know that his sister had called her. He felt that it was not suitable for the Zhu family to show up at this time. Otherwise, the Qin family would suffer more miserably. Only when the heat subsided and the Zhu family was willing to help could it be effective. Lin Su, who was far away in Shanghai, also knew about this big event. Her future father-in-law staggered into prison, which shocked Lin Su very much. She thought that things would be eased, but she did not expect that it would end up like this. Lin Su could imagine how much pressure the Qin family and Qin Sheng were under. As Qin Sheng's official girlfriend, Lin Su subconsciously wanted to rush to Beijing to accompany Qin Sheng. However, after calming down, she found that she could not help Qin Sheng at all. Instead, she would drag Qin Sheng down. In the end, she could only give up. She just sent Qin Sheng a simple text message, "Honey, I will accompany you later and wait for you to come back." After reading the text message, Qin Sheng was quite touched. Of course, he knew that Lin Su did not want to disturb him, so he just replied, "Trust me, wait for me." Qin Sheng put away his phone. When he was about to think about how to talk to the He family, his phone suddenly rang. It was a strange number with no name. At this time, Qin Sheng did not want to be disturbed, so he wanted to hang up the phone subconsciously. However, after glancing at it for a while, Qin Sheng found that this number seemed to be somewhat familiar. After pondering for a few seconds, Qin Sheng suddenly realized that this number belonged to the third guardian family. Previously, he had called several times but could not get through. Qin Sheng had thought that the third guardian family was avoiding or had forgotten about him. Now that they suddenly called at this special time, it was very thought-provoking. After hesitating for a few seconds, Qin Sheng finally picked up the phone. In the foreign-style house where the old lady lived on Sinan Road, Shanghai. Today was the day when the old lady went to Ruijin Hospital for a routine checkup. Due to being hospitalized some time ago, the old lady's health had not been very good. Under the old lady's request, the hospital finally let the old lady leave the hospital. However, the old lady was required to have a checkup every week. Zhu Qingwen went to Guangzhou. Originally, she had arranged for her daughter to accompany the old lady for the checkup. However, the old lady refused in the end. The old lady said that she was very familiar with Ruijin Hospital. It was not far from here. Moreover, with so many medical staff accompanying her, there was nothing to worry about. When the old lady went downstairs, she heard the housekeeper whispering something. After seeing the old lady coming downstairs, they immediately separated. The old lady was a little curious. She asked the housekeeper for a few words, but the housekeeper did not say anything. The old lady did not think much and followed the housekeeper to the hospital. In Ruijin Hospital, for patients like the old lady, there were special areas and special passageways. Even the doctors and nurses were definitely the best in the whole Ruijin Hospital. No one dared to neglect them in this aspect. Not long after the old lady walked into the lounge, a piece of news on the TV on the wall attracted the old lady's attention. After watching the news, the old lady's face instantly turned pale. She finally knew that everyone had been lying to her. Chapter 896. Old Lady North. This was the senior building of Ruijin Hospital. The old lady stayed here every time she was hospitalized. She had long been familiar with the doctors and nurses here. Everyone also knew what level this amiable old lady was. The leaders of the hospital also specially told them about it. They all guessed in private. This was their favorite gossip. Which old lady in a certain ward used to be a leader, and which leaders her sons and daughters were now. After all, it was good for them to take good care of these old people. The lounge of the high-rise building had all the necessary facilities. A large LCD TV was broadcasting the news. These retired old people liked to watch the news the most. Although they were not in their positions and did not participate in politics, they still liked to pay attention to these national affairs. Many retired old people would directly respond to some problems to the leaders. Although they were retired, their power was not small. At this moment, with the help of two medical staff, the old lady stood in the lounge and stared at the news on the TV. The chairman of Chang'an Group, Qin Chang'an, was suspected of serious economic violations and had been arrested by the public security organ, according to law. For ordinary people, this was very common news. After all, many national affairs happened every day, and people were more concerned about the things around them. However, for the relevant personnel, this news was absolutely a heavy bomb, and the old lady was one of them. However, the old lady was not concerned about anything else, but the problem that everyone was lying to her. The old lady was not an ordinary old lady. This news was not ordinary news either. Qin Chang'an was not an ordinary person either. He could get to where he was today, so one could imagine how many storms he had experienced and how long he had endured. No wonder Qin Ran and Qin Sheng left Hai one after another. No wonder Qin Ran had not returned to Hai for so long. Sometimes she was so busy that she did not even have a phone. No wonder Qin Sheng looked more and more tired. It turned out that such a big thing had happened. It turned out that everyone was hiding it from her. The old lady was a little angry. She was really angry. She was angry that everyone was lying to her. Even if she knew it, so what? She was angry that such a big thing had happened. Her poor grandson and granddaughter would definitely be bullied, while she, as a grandmother, was kept in the dark. The medical staff was a little confused. They did not know what this news had to do with this high-ranking old lady. They subconsciously asked the old lady what was wrong. At this time, the old lady had come to her senses. She did not say anything on the spot. Moreover, it was not these medical staff who had lied to her. She said, "Nothing. I just remembered that I forgot to bring something." The medical staff hurriedly said that they could send someone home to get it, but the old lady waved her hand and said that there was no need. For the entire afternoon, the old lady was in the hospital for a checkup. For some reason, the old lady did not seem to be in a good mood. She was also a little tired. The medical staff asked her again and again, but they did not know what had happened. These medical staff were all from the hospital. They were not the medical staff who had been with the old lady for a long time. Otherwise, they would have known what had happened. When the old lady left Ruijin Hospital, the results of several basic examinations had come out. Of course, they wouldn't tell the old lady. The attending doctor of the expert group in charge of the old lady directly told Zhu Qingwen that the old lady's indicators were still high, and the indicators that had dropped previously had risen recently. If it went on like this, the old lady would be prone to accidents, so the expert group suggested that she be directly hospitalized. Zhu Qingwen, who was far away in Guangzhou, had a headache after hearing this. The old lady's health was getting worse and worse. The doctor's meaning was very clear. If these indicators continued to worsen, she would face the failure of all the functional organs of the body. Then the old lady would not have much time left. He had it under control. During this period of time, he had also been using various drugs to control it, but he did not expect it to still be like this. Although the old lady was very old, and people would have all kinds of problems when they were old, such as birth, old age, illness and death, it was human nature, after all, this was her mother. No matter how Zhu Qingwen could understand it, she couldn't accept it. Therefore, for this matter, Zhu Qingwen had to call her elder brother to discuss it. She couldn't make the decision alone, nor could she persuade the old lady alone. The old lady was most unwilling to go to the hospital. It seemed that it had been like this since the old master passed away. She always wanted to resign herself to fate. The sooner she died, the sooner she could see the old master. Every time, Zhu Qingwen called her elder brother's secretary first. After all, her elder brother was busy with official business. If he was not on a business trip, he was on the way to a business trip. Most of the time, he was accompanying the leaders. She knew this rule. After the secretary answered the phone, he directly gave the phone to Zhu Weiguo, which meant that Zhu Weiguo was not busy at this time. The brother and sister talked for a while about the old lady's health problems, and finally decided to be hospitalized for treatment. They couldn't continue to delay it like this, or it would be too late to treat the old lady. Zhu Qingwen said that after she went back from Guangzhou, she would persuade the old lady to be hospitalized. This time, the old lady had to be hospitalized no matter what. Otherwise, how could they rest assured? After the old lady returned to the old foreign-style house from Ruijin Hospital, she sat on the sofa in the living room and said nothing. The nanny and the medical staff did not know what was wrong with the old lady. Seeing the old lady's pale face, they did not dare to ask her. About a few minutes later, the old lady suddenly stood up and said to the nanny who had accompanied her for many years, "Xiaosong, help me pack up. Let's go back to Beijing." The old lady's words were like a bolt from the blue. Everyone present was stunned. For a moment, the whole living room was silent. No one knew what the old lady meant. The nanny thought she had heard it wrong and asked subconsciously, "You said go back to Beijing?" "Yes, pack up and go back to Beijing," the old lady repeated with a firm attitude. After confirming that what the old lady had said was correct, everyone was completely shocked. The old lady suddenly decided to go back to Beijing without any warning, which was out of their expectation. The old lady had not been back to Beijing for many years. Why did she suddenly decide to go back to Beijing? For all of them, it was a particularly shocking news. They could not make the decision on their own. They had to inform the other members of the Zhu family. Otherwise, if they made the decision on their own, they would get into a lot of trouble. The nanny hurriedly said that she needed to go to the bathroom. At the same time, she signaled the others to comfort the old lady with her eyes. She called the old lady's daughter and reported it to her. It was beyond her ability, and the old lady's daughter had to make the decision on her own. As for the final result, it had nothing to do with her. In Guangzhou, Zhu Qingwen was on her way to meet her friends. She was surprised to receive a call from the nanny of the old foreign-style house. Normally, the nanny would not call her if there was nothing serious. Most of the time, they contacted each other through WeChat. Moreover, she would go to the old foreign-style house almost every day or two. Sometimes, she would stay in the old foreign-style house for several days in a week. After hearing what the nanny said, Zhu Qingwen was shocked for a long time. After she came to herself, she asked in a hurry, "What's going on? Why does the old lady suddenly want to go back to Beijing?" "Sister, I don't know. I just called you," the nanny replied in a trembling voice. She was afraid that the old lady's daughter, who looked amiable but was actually bad-tempered, would get angry and think that they had offended the old lady. Of course, Zhu Qingwen would not think so. There must be a reason for the old lady's sudden decision. How could it be for no reason? Thinking about it till now after hearing what had happened to the Qin family, Zhu Qingwen subconsciously thought that the old lady might have already known about it. That was why she decided to go back to Beijing. Zhu Qingwen did not dare to think more. If the old lady had known about it, did she decide to go back to Beijing to help the Qin family through the crisis? It was impossible. Since the old lady's sister had died unexpectedly, the old lady had almost never seen Qin Chang'an again. She hated the Qin family to the core. How could she help the Qin family in this special period? Was there any other reason? It was hard for Zhu Qingwen to figure it out. Moreover, it was a big matter. If the old lady really decided to go back to Beijing or really decided to help the Qin family, she would definitely not be able to persuade her according to her temper. He had to discuss it with his brother again. Only half an hour later, Zhu Weiguo received a call from his sister again. He was very surprised. After hearing what his sister said, Zhu Weiguo was also shocked. The old lady had long been used to staying in High City. She was not willing to go back to Beijing at all. Previously, when the old lady was in good health, he had called her a few times. However, the old lady was used to living in High City. She said that she was not used to going back to Beijing. Now that she suddenly wanted to go back to Beijing, how could he not be shocked? Moreover, the old lady's current physical condition, who would be at ease to let her go back to Beijing. First of all, she might not be able to withstand the torment. Secondly, she might not be able to adapt to going back to Beijing. Although the medical conditions in Beijing were no different from those in High City, there would definitely be other trivial matters in Beijing. How could she be as free as living in High City? After hearing what his sister said, Zhu Weiguo directly said, "I don't agree. I definitely don't agree." Zhu Qingwen said helplessly, "Brother, it's not a matter of whether we agree or not. You know our mother's temper. If she has made up her mind, no one can change her mind. So now we need to think about how to deal with this matter. Moreover, I suspect that our mother might go back to Beijing because of the Qin family. Otherwise, if the Qin family was in trouble this morning and our mother went back to Beijing in the afternoon, how could it be so coincidental? If Mom really wants to go back to Beijing for the Qin family's business, it won't be a good thing if our Zhu family is involved in this special period, let alone her health." Zhu Qingwen continued to say, "It was definitely not a small matter that the old lady wanted to go back to Beijing, which might affect the fate of the whole Zhu family. No one dared to take it lightly in case of any accidents, especially the old lady's health condition." After Zhu Weiguo calmed down, he said, "I've also thought about it. It's highly possible. Do you think the two kids made the decision to call the old lady? If that's the case, I'm so disappointed." Zhu Qingwen hesitated for a while and said, "I don't think so. Qin Ran and Qin Xing wouldn't be so immature. Moreover, Qin Ran has already called me and talked with me. There's no need to call the old lady again. If you're still worried, I'll call them again later." Zhu Weiguo said anxiously, "It's not important now. The important thing is how to persuade our mother. We can't do it by force. Otherwise, if something happens to her, we will be unfilial children. So you call our mother first and then go back to Beijing immediately. I have a meeting here. We'll contact each other after the meeting. If it doesn't work, I'll go to the sea." Zhu Qingwen naturally agreed with her brother's suggestion. After hanging up the phone, she was very worried about whether the medical staff and the nanny at home could stop the old lady. She called her husband in the sea in a hurry. After talking about this matter and the countermeasures with her brother, she asked her husband to go to the old foreign-style house as soon as possible if he was not busy. No matter what, the old lady should listen to him. Chapter 897. Chapter 897 Can't figure it out. Zhu Zhangshun was also shocked by the news. He didn't expect that the old lady would suddenly make such a decision. If what his wife Zhu Qingwen said was true, it would be really troublesome. Although he and his brother-in-law had reached a tacit understanding about the Qin family, the influence of the Zhu family was still on the rise. Zhu Weiguo wanted to be re-elected, and he could work for a few more years at his age. Zhu Zhangshun wanted to make a few more steps in his career, at least 2 more steps, which were absolutely the most important. If he was careless, he would lose everything. Therefore, Zhu Weiguo and Zhu Zhangshun made such a decision about the Qin family. The Zhu family had to choose to keep a low profile and go through the next few steps smoothly. They could never get involved in the affairs of the Qin family. Besides, they had no obligation to manage the affairs of the Qin family. Their only obligation was to take good care of the 2 children. After the Zhu family went through the next 2 steps, its influence would definitely reach its peak. At that time, the Zhu family would be more dazzling than it was today, and it could become a real rich and powerful family in Siju City. Now, the old lady's sudden decision broke all the tacit understanding. How could Zhu Zhangshun not be nervous? It was an urgent matter. After hanging up the phone, Zhu Zhangshun went straight to Sinan Road. Zhu Qingwen called the old lady at once. At least, she had to calm the old lady down until her husband arrived. In the old foreign-style house, the atmosphere was quite depressing. The old lady was in a rage, because no one dared to pack up the old lady's things. The medical staff looked at each other and hurried to dissuade the old lady. They meant that the old lady should not be so angry, because health was very important. Secondly, they told the old lady that it was not suitable for her to go far away now, and she could go back when she was in better condition. The old lady had made up her mind. How could she listen to them? She shouted at the housemaid to pack up the things. No one had seen the old lady like this. It seemed that the last time the old lady got angry was a long time ago. At this time, Zhu Qingwen called. She didn't call the old lady. It seemed that she was worried that the old lady wouldn't understand. She called the nanny. When the nanny saw that it was Zhu Qingwen, it was like she saw the light in the darkness. She quickly handed the phone to the old lady and told her that it was Zhu Qingwen. The old lady was angry. When she heard the nanny say it was her daughter's call, she knew it was the nanny who secretly told her. She glared at the nanny with displeasure. The nanny was so scared that she didn't dare to speak. After hesitating for a moment, she finally answered the phone. "Well, why are you calling?" the old lady asked angrily after taking the phone. Zhu Qingwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When did the old lady become like this? She said obediently, "Mom, I can't call you if I have nothing to do. I haven't seen you for 2 days. I miss you." Zhu Qingwen was always a child in front of the old lady. After all, she was her biological mother. Filial piety was the most important of all virtues. No matter what, no matter when, Zhu Qingwen would not make the old lady angry. She would obey the old lady in everything. After all, she was not young anymore. After all, the old lady was so old. "You miss me? Do you think I don't know why you're calling? Is it Xiaosong who told you? Are you going to persuade me not to go back to Beijing?" The old lady went straight to the point. Zhu Qingwen didn't respond directly. She just replied, "Mom, look at what you said. How can I not agree if you want to go back to Beijing? Beijing is also your home." "That's right. Didn't you just finish your checkup today? The hospital called me and suggested that you stay in the hospital for observation for a few days. When you get better, you can go back to Beijing. I'll go back with you then. I'll stay with you as long as you want. Arya, you were born in my belly. How can I not know what you're up to? Are you trying to build a plank road for me in the dark? You want to persuade me not to go back to Beijing in this way. Do you think I'll believe you?" the old lady retorted confidently. When Zhu Qingwen heard the old lady call her Arya, she knew it was a bit difficult. The old lady only called her that when she was angry. However, Zhu Qingwen didn't give up. She continued, "Mom, why would I lie to you? It's true that you had a checkup today. If you don't believe me, you can call Director Wang now. Besides, why do you want to go back to Beijing? You haven't been back for so many years. It's so comfortable to stay in Shanghai. You said that Beijing is my home. Can't I go back to have a look? Why do you care about this?" The old lady snorted coldly. Her attitude was still very firm. After all, the old lady still had the same attitude. Zhu Qingwen didn't know how to persuade her anymore. She had to tell the truth. "Mom, are you going back for the Qin family this time?" Hearing this, the old lady was even angrier. She said directly, "Oh, you're finally willing to tell me the truth. Why don't you continue to lie to me?" As expected, Zhu Qingwen replied helplessly, "Mom, we're not lying to you. We're just worried about your health. We want to tell me later." "It's such a big thing. Tell me later? I think you can't hide it anymore. That's why you said so." The old lady was a little agitated. Even her voice became louder. Zhu Qingwen was a little scared. She said in a hurry, "Mom, don't be agitated. Don't be agitated. Let's talk about it slowly." The old lady didn't want to continue nagging. She replied, "I don't want to say anything. I have to go back to Beijing today. You can talk about it when you are there." Zhu Qingwen knew that she really couldn't persuade the old lady anymore. If she did, she was afraid that the old lady couldn't bear it. She had to compromise. "Mom, how about this? If you want to go back to Beijing, I won't stop you. But I have to go back with you. Otherwise, I'll be worried. I'll book a ticket to go back to Shanghai now. Wait for me." At this time, the old lady had hung up. Hearing that there was no sound from the other side, Zhu Qingwen continued to ask, Mom, are you listening to me? There was still no sound from the other side of the phone. Zhu Qingwen picked up the phone and found that the old lady had hung up. Zhu Qingwen instantly had a headache. It was not until Zhu Qingwen picked up the phone that she found that the old lady had hung up. Zhu Qingwen instantly had a headache. Zhu Zhongshun, who was already on the way, couldn't help but feel a little anxious when he heard the news. If the old lady's matter was not handled well, there would be a lot of trouble. He already knew the news about Qin Chang'an. If the Zhu family got involved at this time, it would cause a lot of people to be dissatisfied and offend a lot of people. The loss outweighed the gain. It was better to get involved before the matter broke out. Now, the matter was already out of Zhu Zhongshuan's control. If the old lady insisted on going back to Beijing, none of them could stop her. If the old lady wanted to interfere in the Qin family's affairs, none of them could stop her. They could only take one step at a time. Beijing. Qin Xing didn't know what had happened in Shanghai at all. A random decision by the old lady might change the direction of the whole thing. It was just that Qin Xing didn't know it now. If he knew, he might also dissuade his grandmother. He knew what was more important. Based on his grandmother's current physical condition, she couldn't afford to suffer. He didn't want his grandmother to have any accidents because of this matter. However, Qin Xing still didn't know about this matter. He didn't have the time to care about other things now. He was more concerned about the call from the third guardian family. What did it mean at this special time? After thinking for a while, Qin Xing finally picked up the phone. He had no reason not to pick it up. After the phone was picked up, before Qin Xing could say anything, a woman's cold voice came from the other side. I know you are Qin Xing. I also know what happened to the Qin family. See you in Olympic Park in half an hour. After saying this, the woman, who Qin Xing didn't know at all, hung up the phone directly. When Qin Xing wanted to ask something, the line was already cut off. Who was she? Or who was behind her? This was Qin Xing's most direct question. I know you are Qin Xing. I also know what happened to the Qin family. This sentence was even more important. The meaning of this sentence was already very clear. That was, this woman or the force behind her had been secretly watching the Qin family all the time. It was just that they didn't show up from the beginning to the end. Qin Xing's second doubt was whether they had always been paying attention to the Qin family in secret or had they only paid attention to the Qin family recently. Qin Xing's third doubt was, why didn't they pick up the phone when he called them several times before? Why did they suddenly contact them now? Why did they choose this special time? Qin Xing couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. Since he couldn't figure it out, he simply didn't want to think about it. When he met this woman later, all the mysteries would be solved. Half an hour later, Qin Xing successfully arrived at the Olympic Park in the North Fifth Ring Road. When he arrived at the Olympic Park and was about to call the woman to ask about the specific location, the woman's text message came again. The content of the message was very simple, which was the specific location of the meeting. This shocked Qin Xing again. Could it be that all his whereabouts were under the surveillance of this woman? Who on earth was she or they? Chapter 898. The sudden appearance of the third guardian family was out of Qin Xing's expectation. In this special period, if it was someone else, Qin Xing would not have time to deal with them at all. This was the darkest time for the Qin family, and he had to keep a low profile. However, Qin Xing had to meet this mysterious third guardian family. Moreover, there were so many questions. Qin Xing had to unveil her or their mysterious veil. A few minutes later, Qin Xing arrived at the lake in the Olympic Park. He saw a woman in sportswear from afar. However, the woman's back was facing him. She was looking at the lake in the distance, and he could not see her face clearly. The woman had a ponytail and her hair was very black and smooth. It would be a waste for her black hair not to be in an advertisement. She should be more than 1.7 meters tall. The sportswear made her look even taller. If she was beautiful enough, she could definitely be a supermodel. However, he did not know how old she was. If she was a killer from the back, it would be a pity. Qin Shing walked closer slowly and looked at the woman at the same time. These thoughts flashed in his mind. He did not think much about it. He just wanted to see the woman's face clearly. However, no matter how hard he looked, he could not see what she looked like. Qin Shing did not know if the woman knew he was here. He just walked closer slowly. When he was about 2 meters away, the woman suddenly said, "You're finally here." Qin Shing, who was approaching quietly, was shocked. Did this woman have eyes on the back of her head? How could she see this? However, after this thought, Qin Shing was more concerned about the woman's voice. It was a very ordinary voice with nothing special. It was soft and cold. Listening to the voice, Qin Shing guessed that the woman should be about 35 years old, unless the voice did not match with her age. Qin Shing stopped thinking and replied seriously after he came back to his senses. "Are you sent by the Qin family's guardian family?" "I am not sent by the Qin family's guardian family. I am me. I am the Qin family's guardian," the woman replied calmly. However, she still did not turn around, so Qin Shing still could not see what she looked like. This answer made Qin Shing frown. She was not sent by the guardian family. Moreover, she said she was a guardian, not a guardian family. This made him even more confused. "Guardian?" Qin Shing said in surprise. The woman chuckled and said, "Why? Are you confused or disappointed?" Qin Shing sneered and said, "It doesn't matter if you are a guardian family or a guardian of the Qin family. Why did you only show up now?" The woman did not get angry because of Qin Shing's question. She said disapprovingly, "I'm just a guardian of the Qin family, not a savior. I'll show up when I'm supposed to. Do you understand now?" Qin Shing did not stop there. He continued, Guardian, what do you want to protect?" "I really want to know. What I'm protecting right now is your safety. From now on, I'm your shadow. As long as I'm here, you won't be in danger. You don't need to know how I'm going to protect you. All you need to know is that I'm by your side," the woman replied. This answer was very thought-provoking. Upon hearing this answer, Qin Shing burst out laughing and said, "Protect me? What a huge joke. I don't need anyone's protection, nor do I need your protection. And here I was wondering what the third protector family would be like. So it's just SOSO. Whether you need it or not is your business. Whether I protect you or not is my business. There is no direct relationship between the two." The woman still answered with the same attitude. Qin Shing laughed and said, "I don't know who you are, and I don't care if you're playing tricks or not. I'm not interested at all. Maybe the guardian family behind you is scared and doesn't dare to stand up for the Qin family at this time. That's why they sent a puppet like you. Go back and tell them that the Qin family doesn't need them. But one day when the Qin family returns to its peak, it will definitely find you to settle the score. You have to pay the price for breaking your promise." The woman replied in a very boring manner, "I don't know what you're talking about. Do whatever you want. That's your business." All of Qin Shing's cold eyes and sarcasm seemed to be carried on cotton. The woman did not respond at all, nor did she get angry. She just answered Qin Shing's questions like this. Qin Shing did not believe the woman. He felt that the woman was simply lying. If there was no power behind her, how could she know the Qin family's current situation? How could she know his whereabouts so well? Since the cowardly family behind the woman did not come out, Qin Shing was not interested in continuing to talk to the woman. Originally, he thought that there would be a surprise, but it turned out to be just a farce. The family behind the woman was not even comparable to the Zheng family. At least the Zheng family dared to come out, not to mention being compared to the He family. Boring. Don't contact me in the future. Goodbye. Qin Shing shrugged uninterestedly. He turned around and was ready to leave. The woman seemed to be a little surprised. She laughed and said, "What's wrong? Are you disappointed? You think that I can't save your Qin family from trouble, so you want to leave? The Qin family's business is your Qin family's business. Can you blame others for your Qin family's current situation?" Hearing this, Qin Sheng, who had been restraining his emotions, loosened a little. He lowered his voice and said, "Don't challenge my bottom line. I've been patient enough with you." The woman continued to provoke Qin Sheng. "Oh, you're so shrewd. That's all." Qin Sheng said coldly, "You're provoking me. So what if I provoke you? Do you want to hit a woman?" The woman sneered. Qin Sheng stared at the woman's back and slowly approached her. At the same time, he said, "I don't hit women. But I want to see who you are. What are you trying to do?" After saying this, Qin Sheng was already very close to the woman, just one step away. At this time, Qin Sheng suddenly grabbed the woman's shoulder. He wanted to force himself to see the woman's appearance. He did not believe that he could not solve the mystery. However, as soon as Qin Sheng made his move, the woman seemed to have sensed it. She suddenly turned around and kicked Qin Sheng's shoulder. The woman's speed was so fast that Qin Sheng had no time to react, let alone see the woman's move clearly. With a bang, Qin Sheng was kicked out by the woman and fell heavily on the ground. Chang Baji and the rest were following behind Qin Sheng from a distance. When they saw such a big commotion, and it was a woman who attacked Qin Sheng, they immediately rushed over without hesitation. However, they would still approach Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng waved his hand from a distance, indicating that they did not need to come over. Chang Baji and the rest then stopped. When Qin Sheng looked up at the woman, it seemed that she did not move at all. She stood there in the same posture. Qin Sheng still did not see the woman's appearance clearly. He could not see the woman's attack clearly, let alone see the woman's appearance clearly. He had an answer in his heart. The woman was very strong, really strong. Her strength seemed to be above Chang Baji's. Qin Sheng believed that even if Chang Baji attacked him just now, he would definitely be able to fight back. However, facing this woman, he had no chance of winning. It seemed that the strong would only bow to the strong. After this episode, Qin Sheng believed the woman's words a little more. The woman laughed and said, "This is your strength. Is this what you mean by saying that you don't need protection? I admit that you are very powerful. I am not as good as you. But I still don't need your protection," Qin Sheng said firmly. The woman sneered and said, "The men of the Qin family have always been so conceited. No wonder their endings are so sad." Qin Sheng felt somewhat relieved as he said, "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Do what you want. Anyway, we will not meet again in the future. I don't need you." Maybe such a big thing happened today had disturbed his mind. That was why he was at a disadvantage in the confrontation with women. This time, Qin Sheng was really going to leave. He did not need to waste time here. The woman seemed to sense that Qin Sheng was going to leave. She said casually, "Are you going to leave now? Don't you want to know who I am? Don't you want to know what I look like?" "What? Are you playing hard to get?" Qin Sheng did not turn his head this time. He patted the dust on his body, stopped and replied, "I said that you will tell me. You will make me look like you." The woman replied directly, "No." Boring. Qin Sheng did not hesitate this time. He left Olympic Park without any hesitation. This time, the woman did not stop Qin Sheng and let him leave. After Qin Sheng walked far away and made sure that there was no one around, the woman slowly turned around. At this moment, she was extremely beautiful. In the old foreign-style house of the Zhu family on Sinan Road in Shanghai. An Audi, which could travel freely in Shanghai, was parked in the yard of the old foreign-style house. There were 2 other cars parked on the street outside. The men sitting in the cars were not ordinary people. In Shanghai, who could be so ostentatious? Of course, it was Zhu Zhongshun, one of the leaders of this city. However, Zhu Zhongshun, who was powerful and dignified outside, did not show any temper in front of the old lady at this moment. He could only say nice words and smile. He tried his best to appease the old lady's anger. She did not go back to Beijing directly without giving face to anyone. It seemed that the old lady still listened to this son-in-law. After all, the more a mother-in-law looked at a son-in-law, the more she liked him. The old lady had never concealed her love for this son-in-law. Who would not like such a son-in-law? In the living room, the other people in the old foreign-style house all let out a long sigh of relief. If the old lady really had to go back to Shanghai today, none of them could stop her. If something happened at that time, none of them could bear the responsibility. Although the old lady had calmed down, she still looked very pale. She was not as excited as before. In this way, her body would not have any accident. Now she just waited for Zhu Zhongshuan's answer. Why did the old lady calm down? That was because Zhu Zhongshun had promised the old lady that he would tell her everything he knew. This compromise was risky. Zhu Zhongshun could not lie to the old lady, and the old lady was not that easy to be deceived. But he knew what the old lady wanted to ask. If he told her everything, the old lady might be angrier. Now, he was gambling. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.